seriously or watch the presentation. Then we'll enter the second area about 30 minutes before we start the time. So at 7:45 we'll start officially with the student connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Canada. Let's come to Dolomyths Skyrun. We are together, same team as the opening of the Golden Trail World Series in Zegama. David Heller, I'm Martin Gaffuri, and we're super stoked to be here with you.
So high energy because the athletes are going to need that today. It's a 22-kilometer run, which is the shortest in the series, but strangely, it has the longest climb. It has the steepest climb. It has the steepest descent. Like, this is a furious race from start to finish.
It's going to be insane, David, because now we just very briefly talked about the course. For those who don't know, we're here in the northern part of Italy, in the Dolomites, and you will see the images. Let's not give everything away, but from a field perspective, boy, what do we have?
Well, it's two different stories between the women's and the men's. In the women's, the big question is who is going to attack the downhill. We've got Judith, returning champion. She's won it twice before, but she's not necessarily the same runner she was in 2019, in 2021. Sophia Lockley, we expect will be leading out, but will she adapt to altitude? And then we've got new runners like, firstly, Elise Poncet coming back, the downhill queen.
Yeah. Last time, like the first time actually she was here, she was fourth, did extremely well, absolutely smashed the descent, as you said.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's going to be going on in the women's field in that descent.
And Marlene Osser, who isn't a name you maybe know that well so far. She came 5th overall in the finals in Madeira. She is a talent. She's been saving herself for the half marathon distance. This is why we haven't seen her so far. And she is the one that everyone is nervous about because she's so young and she's got so much ability right at the top and the down. That's when she's going to come into action. But in the men's, who are the standing out stars for you?
Well, all the people returning. Obviously, Stian has done really well here. He knows the course, and he announced yesterday at the press conference he was feeling stronger than before.
Yeah.
Elouzine Lazaoui, who with Stian were battling for first a few years back. Robert Penboy, his hell of a climber, and that's, as you said, the longest climb in the circuit, so that could be to his advantage. Bart Protajowski has been here 3 weeks training at altitude, getting familiar with the course. Manuel Merias, who will probably be playing a little bit more on the downhill, but we'd expect him to also be close at the top.
And if you're thinking, where are our classic climbers? Half of them haven't turned up because they're scared of this course. And actually, this course is packed with downhill runners because this is the most technical race in our series. And so for people like Manu, they know this is their last opportunity to score big points because next we're going to Sierra Zanal, which is fast. This is for the road runners. Then to America, far more runnable trails. So they know this is their cup final because if they want to be in high contention for our finals, this is their last opportunity to score big points.
And so now to get a preview of the men's race, let's have our first guest of the day to give you a little bit of an understanding of this course and how the race strategy is panning out. Because, we have a man who's won the race twice. He's from Italy. Ladies and gentlemen, Davide Manini is joining us here on the set. Welcome, Davide.
Thank you very much, Martin. Hello, everybody.
So we're super excited to have you here, even though you're not racing. You've done the race twice, you won it twice, and aside from Dylan, who's got the race, all the runners has gone under the 2 hours and 1 minute mark, and you've done that twice.
Yeah, both time I was here, I was really close to the regular, but
use the support of all the volunteers and staff members that are
And
there.
so, just to give the audience a
No
little bit of a
cut-offs are allowed, so you have to follow straight the line indicated by the flags with the logo of the Dolomyths.
Like, which are the main sections when you're racing, about okay, whether the first one was the second one, and then we'll talk about the race. First, can you take us through the course?
yes, for sure. I think it's really important that each one from the golden trip was it's race. One week, start from the center of the state, it has a very big part, and
These are the most important information that we already gave you yesterday, but it's important to repeat today for the people that were not able to attend the technical briefing. It's 7:45, so we are starting in this moment the streaming connection, and in a couple of minutes we are pleased to welcome again our competitors, our elite competitors with the blue or yellow leaves that will enter our corridor. So we will call them one by one.
7:44 minuti, quindi ci stiamo avvicinando al momento fatidico di quello che sarà l'inizio della nostra fatica. Ci auguriamo di cuore che sia anche una gioia, naturalmente nel percorrere questi 22 km equamente distribuiti la salita e discesa. Ultima comunicazione importante, ricordiamo che il ristoro all'arrivo qui in Piazza Marconi sarà gestito solo ed esclusivamente
the second part, which is the steepest one and the hardest.
And so, something here just for the audience. So we will have images of all the race, of course. And so at the 6 kilometer mark, you will see there's the aid station, and all the athletes who were planning on taking poles will have them waiting for them there. So when you get out there, you pick up your poles, and then this is the 2 kilometer section, what we call the couloir of hell, the crazy switchback, and that's when you took the poles.
Exactly. I took the poles because that part, the rock are flat. It's really steep. The couloir on the top is really steep, and with the rocks, having the poles helps you a lot. So I was doing this strategy both time, and it worked because in Forcella I was able to keep up with some athletes that were in front of me. In 2019 I was already leading in Passo Pordoi, but reaching Forcella I had a bigger gap on the other athletes, so usually it's the best strategy. And after in Forcella Pordoi, at kilometer 8,
Leader of the overall ranking of the Golden Trail World Series, third stage.
Silvia, allora se tu sei d'accordo potremmo anche dire ai nostri atleti di entrare nella griglia, perché tra qualche minuto dovremo poi far entrare anche il top. Allora ragazzi, se volete, sono le 7:47, potete prendere posto all'interno
where you have to grab the rope and climb, scrambling a little bit. So in this part you have to leave your poles to reach Pittsburgh, and from there down there is the big downhill to come back to Canate.
And so, like, maybe talk about like last section of the downhill, because we've said it with David, and we'll see the images, but this is a very technical one. But because we're in Italy, a bit of the land of also sky races, you don't necessarily follow the course.
No, exactly. The first part is really technical. There is after a flat part where there is Refugio Boy, and after the Ballastiers, which is really steep with kick turns. And in one part exactly there are a lot of kick turns, and you can try to cut them and go outside the path, but the ground is really rocky, really technical, so sometimes it's not worth it to cut. You have to manage because it's really dangerous. You can be injured with your ankle with the falling rock. And after this technical section there are the last, I would say, 4 kilometers. The first part in the woods, and after on gravel road where you have to push and to really go as fast as you can to reach again Canate.
And so, like, just maybe from a personal perspective, with your profile that we know, you're extremely strong uphill, but then last time you won, you were even faster going downhill. What is personally your favorite part of the course?
My favorite part is the climb from Passo Pordoi to Pithboy, especially the last part with fixed road, rope, and a little bit of via ferrata is where usually I can move faster and compared to the other athlete, and where I build my gap usually for the race. But after also the downhill, the favorite part is where you can try to slide on the rocks and to cut a little bit. You have to find your own path to go as fast as you can.
That sounds like a lot of fun, but also a lot of crazy running.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, it will be for sure. So thank you so much for being with us. For the audience who want to keep following Davide, he will be joining Silvano on the Italian channel. So if you also ended up on this English channel and you're looking for Italian, there is another channel for this. And then we're going to switch back. Welcome David back. So thank you so much, Davide, for being with me.
Thank you, Martin, and follow us on the live streaming.
And yeah, we continue. So you had images of some of the runners. We're going to call them on the start line. Welcome back, David.
Thank you. I can't wait. I mean, look at the lineup we've got here. We've not even mentioned Frederick Chanchan and Carrie from Mexico. They've done well here. He's a specialist in orienteering. She came third here 2 years ago. And they haven't even made onto our lips yet because this field is so stacked.
It is so stacked indeed. And there we go. Those ones that we really expect to be murdering that course and potentially breaking setting a new course record.
Now we're going to the start line to see the top 10 athletes being presented to the crowd. It's a reasonable sized crowd at the moment, but this is going to be growing and growing throughout the day. Who we expect to lead out, though, in the ladies, Sofia Lockley is certainly the favourite on the climbing. We know that Marcella Vasilova is here from 2 years ago, but she hasn't quite got the form that she had then.
Exactly. Marcella had her first attempt at an ultra distance at the Trail World long distance, and she said it was a long one for her, and she did her ankle there. Didn't take quite the time to recover from it as well. So yes, she is strong, but is she going to be strong enough to keep up? So there we go. We've seen Malin Osa right there behind his Karina Carsolio.
She's looking relaxed, actually. But the question with Sofia, we're starting here, Canazei, at 1,450 meters of elevation. So you can feel the altitude already. And this will really impact the athletes like Sofia, who are coming from Norway, near sea level. And so it's whether they can adjust to this altitude without doing the training in advance because they've not moved here. However, someone like Bart has been here ever since Bob Blanc to adjust to that altitude. So we expect he'll be leading out pretty strong, probably with Robert and El Hussein in the men's.
Yeah, so I'm always a bit worried because Bart cares so much about doing well that he trains really, really hard. And the thing is, when you get to altitude, usually there's about a bit of a period where you need to just chill and let the body adapt to the altitude, and then you can put additional stress for adaptation. If he's done that too early, that could potentially have put him in a state of fatigue that wouldn't give him the explosiveness and the freshness and the juice for today. So we'll see how he goes. There she is, all smiles, Karina Carsolio. Really strong on the downhill. We'll expect her to do well. And she's just joined Anastina Erkila as well, that we've seen. Anders Krakshvich is there, and in the middle, Robert Penboy, as you were saying, one of the men that we should really look out for, especially on the uphill.
And the crazy thing is that Robert, I wouldn't say knows how to pace his race to perfection quite yet. We saw when he was in Zagama, he actually overtook Remy, the best uphiller in the world, up Sancta Spiritu. He's been having a few issues as well with his ankle the last few weeks. So we don't expect him to be necessarily as confident in pushing out. But with no Remy here, it's going to be confusing for this field because they're so used to tucking in behind him when we hit those first peaks. And without a leader, I don't know who's going to be comfortable leading because neither Robert or El Hussein are individuals that like to be at the front by themselves. And Stian is almost too sensible to be attacking that early.
Oh, and we know Stian never attacks early on. He sets his own pace, regardless of what's happening around him. Here he is, El Hussein. We'll see. But so, yeah.
And El Hussein's got a bottle of water with him in a half marathon. We would not have seen this 2 years ago.
That is new indeed. Like he knows that the few things he needs to sort out. He's been so close to winning this race.
Oh, yeah.
So,
is there anyone with so many second places as El Hussein? Second in the series. He came second here 2 years ago. He was second in Zagama. I mean, he is Mr. Second at the moment. And this is the race, I think, that suits him the best out of all of them to shake that off.
Yeah. And then here, more runners joining.
You can see
Elise Poncet. Elise Poncet, probably one of the women who could set up the fastest downhill time today. And then there we go. We were talking about him. Bartolomeo Prodyuski.
He is full of confidence. And Bart will tell you when he feels ready. And actually, after Mont Blanc...
Oh, I'm cutting
Robert
you.
De Lorenzo.
Yes. De Lorenzi.
He's done well here before. I mean, would you put him in the mix today?
100%. And I think a lot of people have been kind of forgetting about him. Roberto is always super quiet, coming from Switzerland. But let's look back at World Champs, vertical K.
Yes.
He was 10th in the world in an absolutely stacked field. And I've been told that he's been training hard for that race as well. So he's Mr. Quiet, but he is insane at going uphill. We've seen that at many races of the Golden Trail World Series.
Do you think potentially he could be in the mix up that first hill? Could he be the person leading out?
Maybe not leading out, but definitely in the mix up to Pittsburgh. Yes, I believe that.
Now, we spoke to Stian yesterday in the press conference, and we challenged him that last 2 years ago he had to run down El Hussein, and El Hussein is a more intelligent and a better runner this year. And so we said, how are you going to deal with that? And his response is, I'm a better runner this year. And 2 years ago, Stian said that, in fact, Stian ran last year and he came third. But what people don't realize is, at the time, he had a young daughter who was allergic to cow's milk, who was waking up 10 to 15 times every night. And so he started last year's race absolutely exhausted. 2 years ago, he wasn't able to train fully because of an issue with his foot. And so he's now he thinks, a better condition than he's ever been. And I think if anyone's going to beat 2 hours today and take the record, Stian is in prime condition for that.
I could not agree more, David. This is the year where the 2 hour mark could be broken in the men's field. And he said it himself. Like, you challenged him yesterday at the press conference, and he said, like, with the level of competition, with the pressure that everybody's going to be putting on each other, he said, I believe it is possible that somebody here today on that field will break 2 hours. Whether it's going to be him or potentially somebody else, who knows? But I hope so. I hope we're going to leave history here and the 2 hour mark will be broken.
And we've not spoken about Manny Marias yet. He's leading our series, and he personally doesn't know what his speed is going to be like at a shorter race like this, because he's been focused so much on heavy mileage and heavy ascent this year. He's clearly got a massive, massive amount of stamina and that downhill speed, but we're not sure, and I don't think he's sure where he's going to be up that first hill, because he knows he's going to have to push harder than he does normally in races. And so there's a chance that he's actually going to be lighting his matches really, really early to make sure he's in contention.
But the thing is, he knows, and he's a bit, I really like him because he's been extremely honest. And he says, like, I am doing the Golden Trail World Series, but this is not where I belong. This is too short, too fast. And as you said, his training style is huge volume and insane amount of vert. So he says, like, I lack the speed and the explosiveness. He said, like, you put me against this field on a 60K plus race, and I will win with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
But there he says, like, I want to step out of my comfort zone and see how I can somehow resist in a format that is not designed for me.
And there's still some names we haven't even mentioned. This is the craziness about the
From
depth.
Scarpa,
We've got
Luca Del Pero.
He came third in the World Championships and is yet to be mentioned. This is the strength of depth we've got here.
Yeah.
And even in the women's, we've got some amazing returning. I mean, Rachel Drake, she's not quite back in the form, but she's someone who, if she was on form, would be up in the mix here. We've got people like Charlotte Merman from Belgium who, in Madeira, she won the downhill segments. She's incredibly talented over that distance, over that type of terrain. And so there are India.
Will cross the line in first place. And then Sophia Laukli has not been feeling the best, but we've seen the kind of performance she could pull off at Mont Blanc Marathon. So perhaps, and that's completely my assumption, I could be totally wrong, but that she will actually try to take it easy, at least the first part of the climb, up to 6K, and then gauge how she's feeling, because she has not been feeling the best. But again, Sophia Laukli only feeling half good, it could still be absolutely lethal
and that's
on
the
that
thing,
course.
Her lead was so big in Mont Blanc. I mean, it was...
And right from the start.
Right from the start. And so that's going to give us so much confidence. And the trouble is, even before today, she wasn't really sure whether she was going to be racing and if she should attack this. But no, in fact, we're going to count us down.
All right.
Here we go.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is on. And look, Fred Tranchant starting in the front. There's the fixed camera in the middle. So look at runners.
I mean, there's 1,100 runners starting today from 26 nations. So this is a big field, actually, for that. That's what happens when the Golden Trail come here. They're hopefully going to be showing us the beginning. But Fred already was looking like he was taking to the front.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, when he broke into the traveling scene, like, he didn't shy away from being at the front. Like, it was the likes of Jim Walmsley.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't care. I don't know you. And then he pulled that, and he pulled away and actually won that stage. So Fred, in good shape, could actually do really well. So that course, again, for those who are joining us, 22 kilometers, 1,750 meters, starting here in Canada and going all the way up to Pittsburgh at 3,150 meters.
And what I thought was fascinating about when Judith was in the press conference yesterday, she said this was such a hard race to get right because you have to push hard on that uphill. It's just a constant climb from the bottom to the top. It's the longest climb in the series. But you somehow have to be able to hold enough back to then be able to concentrate, because you have to concentrate the whole way down. It's just, other than a little dip, almost all just a constant climb and a constant descent. And if you lose that, but you were saying here, look
is here.
Robert's at the front.
Roberto De Lorenzi together with Bart, and followed closely by Fred Tranchant. And then the usual suspect just behind. As we said, Stian is probably not going to try and push the pace too early.
But do you think Bart would be expecting this, or Fred would be expecting Roberto to be there? Because he's been on Golden Trail for 2 years now.
They know him.
But he's never really led out like this. He looks relaxed, right?
So at the stage in Germany, Kim Gao,
yes,
he was in front with Francesco Pupi. I remember that on the whole first climb, which was a runnable climb, he was leading together with Francesco. And then remember, they took a little bit of a wrong turn, then they got reeled in. But knowing how strong he was at World Champs Vertical, and the fact that I heard that he had trained specifically for this race, I'm glad to see that today he does look like he's feeling good, and he's going to be challenging all the other runners.
Stian's just suddenly cropped up in the background. Robert's a little bit further back than we're used to seeing him at this stage. I was seen in classic position, just off the back of them. And who's that in yellow? Is that Manuel Hoffman? Hoffman?
I don't know. I don't know him personally. Here you go.
Here comes Elusine. Okay, so they've clearly just been... Oh, wow. That's a gear change.
This is
a gear change and a half.
2 minutes into the race, and Elusine Elazaoui, ladies and gentlemen.
Where's his bottle gone? He's already dropped the bottle.
He's dropped the bottle. He's dropped the foot on the gas pedal.
Crazy.
And he is making a statement, ladies and gentlemen. He is here to win the 2023 edition of Canada Dolomyths Cat Race. It's just getting out of control. But 2 minutes into the race.
But to explain that we weren't expecting this, we were asking Manu what happens if El Hussein is on your shoulder on the final technical descent, are you going to try and shake him off? Because we believed El Hussein probably would be holding back. But no, this is new confidence from him. And I think Madeira probably helped with that when Remy basically broke him in the hardest climb on day 2. And I think El Hussein realised he had to be his own man. And if he was going to race today, he needed to get ahead of people like Bart and Manu for the downhill. Has he gone out too hard though? Because that was a gear change you expect on the Tour de France.
Oh, that was hell of a push. And then let's look back.
Here's Sophia.
Sophia Lockley. As
Judith
much as she
right
wasn't
with her.
feeling great, Judith together. And then let's see who's coming next.
Carrie coming in third.
And Melaine Osa.
Yeah, okay.
Just ahead.
And we're not quite sure who that is on the right either. So, but they've settled in. Okay, LSC.
Okay, wow, that was woo! just to give us a little switch, just to keep us on our toes.
But who's
early in that
back?
race?
This is it's all kicking back.
It's Stien.
Wow.
Stien is like, I mean, these two, we said, Elusin and Stien going back and forth in the descent. When these guys together were battling it out for the win, and then Stien had taken the win. So I don't know what Elusin was thinking, if he was just trying to make a statement, but look, they retaliate. It is better than Tour de France, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is insane, and we're like less than 5 minutes into the race.
Steep that looks already. That is, I mean, this is a brutal race. And don't forget, Stien and El Hussein, they had an entire season of battling it out head to head like this during the races. But they'd normally expect to see Remy. But we're now with our first lady.
I just want to say, because we've seen them like in the first 5 minutes, one attack from Elusin, and then Stien retaliates. Elusin is trying to keep up. Do you think they're gonna murder each other early on, and then whoever is actually staying nice and quiet right now is gonna be able to scoop it up?
Well, because it's so short, we know they've got the ability to push hard for a long time. Are they going to be used to this altitude, though? Because the trouble is, if they're attacking early now, by the time they get up to the top, it's close to between 2,800, 3,000 meters right at the peak. And altitude will be absolutely taking chunks out of them. And if you're already in deficit, that's when they're really going to suffer. And so the trouble is here. It is quite... But look, LSC has pulled away again. So they do seem to be battling.
No, we still have Stien.
And Stien's still there.
So
Okay.
with the Essex top, like light blue. But you're right, like Elusin is in grey, so that's a bit similar. Fred Tranchant is not letting the group pull away. He might pass.
Yeah,
and like, this is insanely steep, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, like, it's good we have a camera on the ground to give us a better perspective. Sometimes when we have those drone shots, it kind of flatten the terrain. But this is brutal.
But also, normally when you see a camera runner climbing, you can't always tell they're climbing. But this is horrifically steep. Look at the body positions they're in and how hunched they are. That gives you an indication of just how... But already, Roberto is struggling to keep the pace on this. He's... Roberto
is in third. He's keeping that nice and quiet.
So we have a new runner in yellow.
Like he does. Yeah.
So he's looking good. But the fact that Judith and Sophia are together, Judith knows that she hasn't got the downhill ability that she did in 2017 or 2019. And so she did say that she was going to be pushing a little bit harder on the uphill because she knows she's not going to be able to catch up quite as much. Sophia is fully aware of Judith's downhill ability, though. So the fact that Judith is on her shoulder will start to play into her mind. And if Sophia is feeling a little bit more comfortable and the altitude's not playing on attacking her too much, she's going to have to try and shake off Judy early. And she knows that. To be able to really try and win this race, she cannot be with her at the top.
And I mean, and shake out Judith, but then again, Elise Poncet, like, we know how insanely strong on the technical she can be. And as much as she's always mindful about, like, not destroying herself, like, we've seen that. Like, at the Madeira Ocean Trails, like, when she chooses to, like, pull out that extra gear downhill, like, no one can keep up with her.
But the strange thing is, we're not going to necessarily know how she's feeling at the top, because she said, actually, if she doesn't feel like she's in the perfect race mode, she's going to be running harder on the uphill, similar to Judith, because she knows she's not going to be able to... Saving back for the downhill won't help her too much. But what I can't wait to see is how good she is in comparison to Judith back in 2019. We've been on Strava because the official downhill records aren't accurate on the website. And in fact, we're going to be looking at, this is telling you a little bit more details of how the course compares to the rest of them.
And look at this.
Look at that steep climb from Passeport d'Oie. This is the moment they can choose to take poles or not, because look how steep that climb is.
Look, right out there and all the way onto the Pittsburgh, and then down is actually quite technical. The little flat on the refuge, and then that part that we just skipped here in the what looked like the little valley is where these guys and girls are going to be able to choose to cut all the switchbacks. You will see, hopefully, on the images, this is completely legal. This has been signed off by the race directors. This is kind of a race special.
It's been clarified about 7 times by the athletes over the last 5 days, because everyone wants to. So now it's dropping down to a group of 3. And so Elwood seems to choosing to go to the right. Interesting. It looks like he's chosen to come back. There's choosing to go on the grass or the rocks, or there's definite personal preference within that. But you can see the difference they're doing already. And for Manu, he knows from racing in Stranda against Bart. Stranda, I'd say, was more in Manu territory downhill, and they were almost neck and neck on that downhill. There wasn't a huge amount of difference in their speed. And so if you're Manu right now and you're looking ahead at them pulling away, how many minutes do you think he believes?
There he is, talking about him with the poles.
Sticks out early.
So he took them out right from the beginning, which makes sense when you see how steep that whole climb is. It was interesting to hear David Imani. He's like, oh yeah, the first part is a bit runnable. it's all to be put in perspective, because those athletes are absolute world-class athletes, and so it's hard to tell. The only indication he gave us yesterday was the fact that if he still has them on site,
yes,
he will be able to mentally stay switched on and launch the chase. If he's too far back, it will be a question. But he said also, he's like, guys, regardless of who's around me, I'm going to be going as hard as I can.
Full gas is his favourite phrase, isn't it?
All the way to the finish line.
It's one of the very few phrases he knows confidently in English. So he'll drop full gas into every press conference he can. And we believe that to be true. But the day before the race, the athletes can choose to drop sticks. And these are our female leaders. They're still together. And Sophia and Judith locked in there. Judith looking really comfortable here.
You know what it reminds me of? 2019, Ruth Croft and Judith. They were together on that whole climb, and neither of them could shake off the other one. And then once they tipped over and got onto the descent, that's where Judith is like, all right, see ya, bye-bye. I am a queen over entering world. I am extremely comfortable on technical, and now it's my race, and I'm going to go for it. And actually, once they got to the top, they were actually behind Mode, and they both caught up with Mode, taking the best lines down the switchback. So again, course advantage here. Whoever knows the course will definitely have a huge advantage on the rest of the field, and that's why so many runners have come early to check it out.
And this is where the fact that the women and the men have started together actually changes slightly how the race could unfold, because previously Maud was running by herself, and she had to then decide whether she did the switchbacks or she cut, and she did the switchbacks, and she was overtaken by Judith, who took 3 minutes out of her, and Maud didn't even know that she'd been overtaken. Because Sophia is running with the men, she'll be able to see the lines that other runners who are more aggressive than her are taking. So actually, this is a huge advantage for her, because she won't have to necessarily make the decision on what the best strategy is, because she'll be able to easily see what is happening in front of her, who's running left and right, who's going straight, and which seems to be achievable for her and her level of skill.
Yeah, because, I mean, just like Mont Blanc, I remember at the press conference, like, oh, what's your game plan? What's the course? Like, well, I have yet to, discover the course. So she's not one to prepare. She just comes ready, and it doesn't seem to let any stress or worry take the best out of her. She just knows that, and it was her sentence was actually quite refreshing. It's like, you know what, like this is going to be the longest distance I'll have run, but at the end of the day, it's just running, and I know how to run. So I'm just going to keep doing that for as long as I can, for as fast as I can. So
but look, Robert is quite far back here, Robert Kimoy. So he I know he's had a few weeks where he's not been able to train properly because of his ankle. This is, for me, a sign. But this was our runner in yellow, the individual we weren't sure of. So he's now starting to pass people. So I think this puts Robert back up into 6th. hopefully he's just been testing his leg for a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on before he starts to push on the climb, because we're yet to see that steeper climb, which only really starts to kick in at Passapordoy at kilometre 6. Now, the athletes, they leave at the aid stations their nutrition, but they can also leave their poles. And I counted how many
pairs
of poles there were there. How many do you think from our 30 top male, 30 top female poles there were in total?
Probably around 25, considering that some of them would have taken them right from the start. I don't think many of them will choose not to take them. When you see like Fred Tranchant, who's never ever raced with poles, he's trained with it just for this race. And he said, "I will take poles."
He won't even visit Poland. He hates poles so much. But there were only 7 sets of poles in the box, which really surprised me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it could be that they've got their friends who are giving them out.
It's got to be the case, because it's not only for elite athletes that option to pick up poles at 6 kilometers and drop them off at 8. So I believe, since the organization is offering that service, probably all the poles got dropped off at a place, and not necessarily only for elite athletes, because I doubt that we'll only see 7 people pick up poles at this point.
But interestingly, Bart has said he's going to be using poles, and is this Judith? Has Judith broken free, Sophia?
I was just waiting to see behind her if Sophia has broken the elastic, and Judith has now chosen to.
This is a significant move from Judith, and Judith came second at the World Championships, a performance that we were delighted to see, but we weren't necessarily expecting, given that she's had an incredibly tough 2-3 years with injuries, and so she's clearly feeling great. But does this mean potentially, she said if she wasn't feeling great, similar to Elise, she'd push harder on the up. So is this actually a sign that she isn't feeling as good as she thought she may?
It's hard to tell, because she's had an orienteering career before. She is a world-class athlete. She will know her race pacing, and she's been on the course before. So I think if she's there, I don't think she would have put pedal to the metal. Simply maybe Sophia, as I was sharing with you all at the start, that she might not feeling 100% for the first 20-30 minutes, but eventually might actually warm up into it and accept that she was going to suffer quite a bit from her lungs. She was not feeling 100%, but then it would technically pass. So maybe she's just realizing that it hurts a bit too much. She may be in the red zone, and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to wait for the storm to pass and then start doing my own thing. But at this point, technically, it's all speculations, and it's still a bit early to define. But one thing that for sure is happening is that Roberto De Lorenzi now has been dropped by these 2 runners. Stian Ungermund and Elusine El Azawi are now neck to neck, like we've seen so many times before.
And I honestly don't know who's a better downhill runner now, technical down, because Stian is incredibly fast. He's come from 4th place before to win overall at this very race. He overtook El Hussein. But El Hussein, as we saw in Zagama, when you can run with Manu in the wet and not be shaken off, and some of the hardest, most technical, treacherous trails, you know that he's going to be able to follow Stian and not lose too much mental concentration and effort. We're seeing the peak here. So it's full glory.
It is absolutely. And to answer your comment, David, I'm like, I don't know who. I think they're equally strong on a downhill. Stian said, I have good days where I am extremely fast on downhill, and the last time he won, he was 5th at Pittsburgh, and then reel everybody in on the descent, including Elusine.
Look at that gap already. That is huge.
But then Elusine probably has the ability to be stronger physically and pass Stian on the downhill, or pull away from him. But mentally, and we talked about this, David, mentally, is he prepared to take on the status,
the world champion,
of being the best, of passing those who are tagged with the champion's mark? And that psychologically is a tough one to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I just saw Iris Pesset on that climb ahead of Malenosa.
So Iris is known for her climbing. She's won the climbing segments in the past. And she wasn't someone we were necessarily watching for this whole race, but she's been doing a lot of kind of shorter, sharper races so far this season, and she's clearly feeling good.
Yeah, I had a conversation with her yesterday, and she's like, you know, I am very aware that I am not going to be the fastest downhill runner, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be back. I am feeling good, and so I'm going to push, and I'm going to play all my cards on the uphill and then see what happens, because a little bit like Stian, she has good days when all of a sudden everything clicks on the downhill and she can actually be strong, and sometimes she says, like, I just can't get it on. And so she's like, regardless of what's going to happen, since there's a question mark on the other side, I'm going to go full gas and try to do my best on the uphill. And it's good to see that she is in the mix, but I couldn't agree more, David. The gap already
this is crazy
between Stian and Elusin and the rest of the field, and it's only the chasing field. It's only a field of 3 men, and then further back, way further back already in the valley.
If you're Manu and you're looking ahead, and because you always choose points in the race to try and gauge how you're doing. You don't look back necessarily, but this is an opportunity where they'll be able to look back without everyone realizing that they are actually looking back, because it can be seen as a sign of weakness if you are already thinking about who's behind you. But if you're Manu now and you're looking ahead and you can't see the race leaders, that has got to be massively disheartening, and that comes into play because it suddenly changes your game plan, because you think, I need to be moving faster now if I'm going to be in for a chance of this. And that's where people start going into the red zone early, and that is danger, because when you're at altitude, the difference is the phrase catching your breath doesn't apply within altitude, because there isn't any breath to catch. It takes too long. So if you go too deep into the red zone, you're done. You're toast. You're not coming back.
You're not coming back until you get to the other side, and so that will be a bit of a challenge indeed. And I want to say that let's not bury these 3 gentlemen. Roberto De Lorenzi, I am pleased to see Fred Tranchant here, and then Bart Przegierski in the chase. So
Bart will feel good right now with these 2 ahead of him. He'll know he can take them on the downhill. Fred's probably close to the 2 of them.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen a classic battle between them.
But I think, David, sorry, I'm cutting you because I believe there's going to be shortly a quick commercial break with a little bit of a video clip, so we might be cut there. But yeah, I just wanted to warn the audience about what's coming up, and then there we go.
Is in 5th place currently, but significantly before we left, you'll see that the runners took a slightly different route. There are red flags that are all along this course, and the rule is you have to be within 10 meters of the red flags. So
exactly. So you can cut, but only to a certain extent.
So I think we saw they were taking like these 2, Roberto and Fred, took a far tighter turn than our leaders, which would have caught them back meters. So staying astute and just thinking about the course is really important, because it can save you quite a lot of time if you're taking the racing line rather than just sticking to the flags and the path themselves.
Which also means that you always have to be aware and looking up around you and be able to pick up the right line. But yes, here Roberto De Lorenzi, not surprised here, is still at a, they're not leading simply because there's 2 rockets in the front who are clearly running on their course record pace right now, and we'll see when they reach Pitzboy, because Davide Manini has the fastest time in 1:14.51, I believe. And I think they're going to be running under that. So Roberto De Lorenzi, Fred Tranchant, and even Bart Przegierski here, they're probably still running very close to course record time.
And interestingly, when Davide has one of his best times, he was a minute slower on the up, and yet he's still finished under 2:01. So it just goes to show how much of a difference it can be. A minute here and there on either side. Holding back a little bit before on the climb can actually increase your downhill speeds. And so, but this is Judith. And look at that position there. Look how she's really
power hiking, and she's taking advantage of that. Like when you're slowing down for like to take a gel or something, keep fueling. You cannot run on fumes on that race.
Yeah, even in a half marathon, they're going to be fueling the whole way because this is around 2 hours of absolutely solid pace. I mean, you can see she's already shifted back into the running style.
And you see the quick look over the shoulder just to see where Sophia is. Sophia, especially wearing red, will be spotted easily. And I think from in a distance, she was about like 30, 40 seconds back, but still running. And so, yeah, it's going to be exciting in the women's race as well to see how things are going. But here we see a typical Judith head down in the zone like we saw her at Worlds, just doing her thing, knowing her pace, and just doing her.
And this is where the fact that Judith, she's 5 times world orienteering champion before she switched across to trail. And having that kind of experience is super useful because she'll know how she needs to feel at each stage of the race. And she'll also know how to protect a lead, but to ensure that she saves enough for the downhill. Something that will be in the back of her mind. She suffered a stroke 2 years ago, and it did affect us very significantly. And she lost some of her eyesight, which she's never fully regathered. And so she's aware that she's not able to pick a line and to attack a downhill with the same focus and the same ability that she did in 2019, for example.
As a comparison, if you listeners are runners as well, and you've ever experienced running at night with very little light, that's what it feels. You never know exactly where the ground is, and so there's about these few mils either off you're too short or too close, and so the impact is just not as smooth, not as fluid. And so when you need to actually like have high speed turnover, jump over rocks, and be quickly reacting to the terrain, which she was absolutely marvelous at, then she just lost that edge.
And particularly because her running style and downhill, if I think of someone like Judith and I think of someone like Elise, they're very different in how they look. Elise is almost a playful jumper, kind of springing around on the downhills, whereas Judith kind of scythes and glides down. And so if you lose that connection with the ground, it's very hard if you're a kind of a smooth runner because it just in every step gives you a little bit of a jolt.
So it looks like it's a good day for Fred Tranchant because if he's managing to pull away from Roberto De Lorenzi, Fred Tranchant is in good shape, in the possible best shape he's ever been. And we've seen him do extremely well at the Control World Series final in the Azores at the time. And so now he's showing that he is back and he wants to do well at this race.
And this is a significant amount he's already put into Roberto because they were running together when they went to the advert only about 3 or 4 minutes ago. So he's clearly stepping up here. And the fact that he can... Is that the cyclist or is that the lead? We can
no,
see
the
ahead.
cyclist would be behind. And so this is the chasing group.
So I believe this, but he was in
might be
third.
right.
He might be
right because
he might be catching up on El Hussein and Steen.
So which would mean he's also past Bart.
So there was a group of 3 of them behind. I think Bart was holding on to them. When we went to the adverts, it looked as if the chasing group took a tighter turn and actually took about 5 meters just from taking a more tactical route up there. But yet, this is our top 3. And he's closing in on them. Now, if you're Steen and El Hussein, I don't think they'd have been thinking about Fred at this stage. I don't think they were in their race thoughts. And this will really unsettle them when they look back and suddenly realise they're being caught because it adds doubt into your mind.
Yeah, and these two have been pushing hard, and they probably realized that looking back, they've opened a significant gap, and now it's going to be between them too. But they haven't let go of the gas pedal, and yet Fred Tranchant. Okay, another reference that is important to mention to the audience is during the COVID year, Sierre-Zinal was done in a kind of a time trial style. Anybody could go on the course, announce it before, and then do the race on their own. And this is what Fred did.
And he is closing.
Oh, he is totally going to reel them in.
I don't understand how he's doing this because Fred is from Finland, and near
he's from France.
So Fred is from France, but he lives in Finland. And the biggest hill near him is 40 meters, and he said through the winter there was snow on the only hill nearby, and he couldn't run it. So he is somehow, I don't know if he's been shipping out to the Alps to train to try and get his vert, But if you look at someone like Manu, who does 2,000 meters of climbing every day on average this year, and yet you've got Fred, who's somehow managing to close some of the best climbers in the world, having been based in Finland over the winter. It's just incredible. But he's someone who also, because it's all interior background, and we saw in Stranda, he's incredibly good on the wet, particularly where there's puddles, there's moss. It's unknown what is underneath, under your foot. This is not that type of trail, though. This is a lot of shale, it's slippery, it's rocky, and I don't know if he's quite as good as Descender over that type of terrain.
Well, at this Skyrim, and you remember, it was not nowhere near as technical and rocky and loose rocks, but it was still pretty technical in a trail running sense.
But Jan Margaret pulled away from him. He was leading at one point, and yet Jan Margaret and I think but Jan Margaret pulled away. So Fred ended up, I think, third in that race, having been leading with Al Hassin. But you can see this will be giving him so much confidence to be in touch with them. And 2 years ago, we thought Fred could achieve this kind of performance. And at the end of the race, he went back to the hospital because he'd fallen, and he had a small pebble in his knee that he had removed.
Yeah, and so and just to clarify, that pebble had been in his knee since his orienteering competition, World Champs. So he had been racing World Champs orienteering, fell, hurt his knee, and it wasn't cleaned up properly. So he ran Canada, like the Dolomyths Sky Run, with a pebble in his knee the whole way around. So we were surprised indeed to not see him perform as best as we thought he could. And then once we heard that, it's like, well, no wonder. But so he's back and clearly in very good shape to potentially be a contender, at least on the podium, if not better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our top three at the moment. Behind them, when we last checked, was Bart, and then there was quite a gap for the chasing group. But here's Sophia coming through. Sophia Lockley in second. She's still looking quite good, actually. She's looking strong. And is this Carrie from Mexico?
Carrie Nacosolio.
She was in fourth at this kind of stage 2 years ago. So she's clearly, she's had some issues as well. The last couple of years she had some injuries that took her out, and also a bit of a lack of confidence, I think, coming to Europe and finding out that she wasn't quite at the level she thought she was. She's been rebuilding these last 2 years, and clearly she's got the confidence back. But now, a pack of three. What would this do to you if you're skiing and you're suddenly like, where has Fred appeared from? And if you're Fred, are you going to attack, or are you happy to sit in here and back yourself on that technical descent?
Oh, my guess is he's just going to sit there. He just wanted to be at reach. Now he's caught the train. He's going to sit there, kind of recover, because clearly he had put a big effort to reel them in. Now he's sitting there, nice and easy, and see the gap. Like this is about 50 meters with Roberto De Lorenzo, who will potentially try and close, but not as quickly and as easily as Fred has done. So it might be a group of four when they get to the 6K 8 station and when they pick up the poles. That's the question. I don't think Eluzin will be taking poles.
Certainly not. And in fact, I'm not sure if any of these three will.
Yeah, Fred Tranchant 100% will.
But Bart certainly will for the first time, he said. And we saw Bart in the background there. The fact he can still see them, I think, will give him hope. And if you're these three, you'd almost want to try and get slightly out of sight of the chasing runners, because it just demoralizes them. And they start to think about the people behind them rather than the people ahead of them. But we're coming up to the steepest climb now, from Passeport up to Forcella Pordoi is incredibly steep. It's only 2 kilometers of distance, but in terms of climbing height, they're going up 600 meters in those 2 kilometers. It is going to feel absolutely brutal because they have been pushing hard to this point. Significantly for these runners, though, at the end of most trail races, you get a good amount of distance to try and run fast to pull in the chasing pack. And
there we go. There he is.
So maybe, do we think the front pack is slowing? Do we think they've gone out too fast?
That's what I was going to say. I think the fact that they attacked each other super early and at insane paces, like, it might have cost them, and they might have burned a bit too many batches. And look at Roberto. Is he even going to pass and make a move? There we go. There we go. I told you he was in shape.
Wow. This is incredible. And it's incredible. And this will be absolutely playing on the minds because they'll know they've gone out too hard. And doubt it's something that can just eat at you in a race like this. It makes you then question all of your other choices. It makes you then think, maybe I'm not as fit as I thought I was, and maybe Stian hasn't been racing Golden Trail for 2 years. He hasn't raced many of these athletes over that period. He did say to me, and it broke my little heart, he hasn't even been watching the Golden Trail series despite the talent of its presenters. And so he won't know necessarily what the level of these athletes is in a way that he did 2 years ago. And so he is going to be having to slightly fine-tune what his expectations are on where he thinks he'll be in this pack. And the fact that Roberto hasn't even looked back, he's just stepped it up. Will they try and go with him? I think they will, and you can see Stian seems to attack, and they've put a bit of a distance on Fred now. Wow, what a battle at this stage already, and we thought the downhill was going to be the talk of the town.
So clearly at this pace, and the fact that these gentlemen are attacking each other, keeping the pace extremely quick and most likely under close record, is telling us that we do have a crack at potentially breaking 2 hours at the finish line here for one of those gentlemen, which would be history because that has not been achieved. And this is the 25th edition of the Dolomyths Skyrun that you guys and girls are watching with us. So once again, thanks for being with us here in the Gold Trail World Series. And as per usual, we are offering you these images with camera runners, with drones, with mountain bikers, and it's just so there. And we're going back and forth between the men and the women to give you, once again, the biggest trail running show.
Absolutely. And we were saying slightly before we... and so Bart is still in it here. You can see, hopefully he's not head down too much. And the fact he can see the group there, them battling it out and having a slogfest at this stage could be very good for him because he's settling to his own pace now. And he'll actually be pacing for trying to achieve the best time he can over the race because he's not reacting to other people. He's settling into the way he wants to be running. And we're now coming back to Judith, and that is a significant gap over Sophia.
Yeah, she's doing her thing. Once again, Judith does not get pulled out by any other runners in a race, and we saw that at Worlds, and she is showing that she has prepared, she is fit, and as you said, she knows that she can't bank as much because she is still extremely strong on the downhill. She just can't bank as much on her downhill skills anymore, meaning that she's just going to have to push early and strong. And this is exactly what she's doing, which is excellent for Judith to be coming back here and putting herself in a position where the win is at reach.
Now we're hoping when they pass the aid station, we're hoping to be able to get some split times to be able to see where people like Elise are, because that is going to be the story of the second half of our race: is how much can they catch up on our runners. But we mentioned before, in some of the races, you get a nice runoff at the end where there's 2-3 kilometers that allow the faster runners to actually break our technical specialists. But there's only about a kilometre of gravel at the end of this course, which isn't a huge amount of distance. And also gravel isn't the easiest terrain to be able to start pushing. And so the gaps that we'll see during the race are more significant in this race than other races because it's far harder for the runners to be able to catch that up towards the end.
And I think there's more than that, like between the gravel, the road, and then the rolling terrain at the end. I think it's a bit more than that. I would say the race is 22 kilometers, and I think from 16.5, even prior to that aid station, Skiven 8, I think it will be rolling. So they will be transitioning from that long and technical descent all the way to the Fine Pianivallasti.
Now we're yet to really talk significantly about the very peak of Pisboye coming down there. There are switchbacks, which means you run from left to right, and the real talk amongst the athletes so far this last week has been how that has potentially changed, because they've dug up the bottom of that section of trail and they've put in water pipes, and that means the terrain that you used to be able to run on that was soft, that you could avoid the rocks and just almost slide down and glide through, it now is very packed. And so we saw last year when the Golden Trail wasn't here, Stian raced it, Davide raced it, but both of our leaders, Stian fell at that point. Martina, who won the women's, fell at that point. And so that will be putting some doubt into our downhill runners of how they approach it, because it's slightly different.
Yeah, but so we talked about this, David, and they will not be allowed to actually go on that terrain, on that part. So the far left of the downhill is now off limit. And that's why when they explained they had to stay within 10 meters of a flag, they will still be able to switch back, but not as far left as they used to run, indeed, because the ground is now much stronger and harder, so you can't dig your heels into gravel. And that being said, with Davide, we had the conversation right before we started the live, and he's experienced both, as you said, and he said, as much as he couldn't go as far left, that was still his fastest downhill time.
Yeah, his downhill was incredible. And to give you an idea of the types of speeds they're running, they get to Pisboe at 10 kilometers. This is a 22-kilometer race. 2 hours is the time they're going for, the record they want. And yet Davide was finishing that in close to kind of 43 minutes for the 12K. The record on the website is not what you would expect.
Oh, and just an indication, what you see on the screen is not accurate. They do not have 13K to go there, because at 10K, they are at the very summit. So they're not even at 6K into the race where we said they could potentially pick up poles. So this is a slight mistake here, but don't get confused.
And we'll know this when they come through the aid station, when you see all the crowds, when you see them stopping for nutrition and getting the poles out. That is when they're at 6 kilometers, and they're starting the steepest climb, 2 kilometers of climbing. But if you look on the website, the records aren't quite right. I went on Strava earlier today, and Judith's time in 2019 was 49 minutes and 3 seconds for 12 kilometers from the peak to the base. I mean, that is sensationally fast. We're not sure if she'll be able to run that speed today, but someone like Elise Poncet certainly will be in that kind of that region of pace. But she's still looking smooth here, Judith. She's looking fantastic. And do you think she'll be missing not having a board there to chase and not having the big name rivalry? It's been a while since she's had a classic battle with someone.
I mean, David, the battle has yet to come. This is how I would like to put it. And Judith knows that, and she's just doing her thing. Look at this.
We're still in touch.
We just caught a glimpse of Sophia in red. She's not too far back.
Yeah.
She is still well in the race. I think Judith is, like I said, she is a master at pacing herself, doing her thing, going strong. And then she said, you know, if I'm feeling good on the downhill, I will do my best. She is well aware that her eyesight will not allow her to go just as fast. But, you know, I think the battle will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've spoken about orienteers being very good for this course, and that's because they have to run with their maps over very varied terrain, and so they subconsciously just get very good at running over completely varied terrain without having to focus too much. The challenge, though, that we've seen of orienteers moving over to races like this is that they're not used to such long climbs, because typically if you're doing orienteering, you'll do a climb of 50 meters, then you're down again, and it's constantly rolling. Whereas this is a climb of 1,700 meters in one solid stretch.
And you've seen how steep it is.
Yeah, and so it's very hard because your muscles are used in completely different ways, and they just don't get any let up in any sense.
All right, David. There's been a change again. So where the poles have been picked up, I believe. Yep, that's it. So Roberto De Lorenzi and Fred Tranchon have picked up poles, and both Stian and Elusine have chosen to go without it. And it seems that at this point, maybe this is where the gap happened.
Do we think that the transition, when they grabbed, when they were unpacking?
I mean, unpacking, just going off course, picking the poles, and then coming back. This is potentially where that 10-meter gap has created. So now, let's see. Two different strategies.
Yeah.
Davide Manini, 2-time winner, said for him, it was important to have poles, both for the physical traction of putting yourself, propelling yourself forward, but also because of the terrain and the fact that he said this gravel is slippery, and therefore, like, to turn that effort and that power into speed, if you don't have the right traction or you're slightly sliding, that's all the energy that's just going away and not transitioning into speed.
And
look
you
at
see
this.
there, firstly, he
yep.
was pointing to Stian like, we need to go right because he saw the flags, but you saw a slight slip there. And that wouldn't happen with the poles. And so it does start to frustrate you if you're slipping back because you're working so hard. And look, they're starting to walk now because Stian on the left was struggling to actually be able to run properly without losing his footing.
So that little sign here is telling me something. Elucine, I mean, as a gentleman that he is, he saw Stian going the long way, and he said, so there's two ways to see it. Was he like, hey, buddy, you're missing the good line, or he's still not able.
He doesn't want to
lead.
Yeah.
He's still not able to choose to take his own route, do his own race, and lead on his own.
But also, it shows that he is very clearly alert at the moment.
100%.
He is not tired in any way. And the fact that Stian, we can't read too much into it, but Stian to miss a turn like that, he's clearly, he's at that stage, he wasn't able to just focus on the course because he was having to focus on the terrain. But I believe, listening back to one of your previous lives, you'd mentioned something about how using poles saved about 30% of the effort goes into the arms. And this is significant when it comes to the racing and not using up the glycogen in your muscles and getting too tired.
So, and that happens when you're on a slope that's above 20%. And here, with the images, you can clearly see that's the case.
This is our peak, by the way. This is what they're going to be running at Pisboe to get to the very top. So you can see what we mean by switchbacks here. This is on the up. This is a very famous climb that if you can ever do this, do it just to see what the altitude is. Because at this stage, they are going to be out of breath as well. But do you think then this is really going to favour Fred? We know Fred has got more of the downhill skills than Roberto, so we'd expect him to be more of the challenger of the two of them. Do we think then the fact he's using poles now will give him more ability to be able to attack on the down?
It's hard to tell because, that fact about saving 30% of your legs, it's more applicable to ultra running because here, these gentlemen will not be using the poles to save their legs, but to increase the speed. Because for 22K, you're pedal to the metal. You're not saving anything. So they have to be mindful that using the poles to push hard, more in a VK type effort, is going to make them go a little faster.
And here's Roberts. Roberts in maybe 6th, I believe, if Bart's ahead of him. So he's looking okay. Interestingly, the route into this, we've talked about VK for Roberto, but Stian and Davide both started as VK champions before they went into trail. And so this is where they'd have honed their technique. Davide with the pole, Stian without.
Yeah.
There was Luca, who went past as well.
Yeah, and ahead was Jean Marguerite.
Jean Marguerite.
Yeah, he is here. He's won the race before here. So when he's in good shape, Jean can be extremely strong, and both in up and down. So the fact that he's now past Luca Del Pero is probably telling us that he's on a good day, and he always starts nice and quiet, doesn't make too much noise, but he could do extremely well here.
And he won the Skyrun from his downhill running, and but significantly when he won here, his time was only 2:06. So he needs to have improved quite a lot, which I think he has as an athlete. And the fact he's up there with people like Luca at this stage, it's a good sign for him. He's got the ability to come into that top 3 with his downhill descending. We've seen that, the fact that he outrun Fred in Skyrun on that downhill, he's got the ability there. But look, Sophia is that no, it's not Sophia in red. There's someone else wearing red behind Judith. But
cheeky.
I mean, Judith has gone for the poles. She's looking very smooth right now, very comfortable on this up. And you can see the way she's got the poles, but you don't always engage them as soon as you get a smoother, less steep section.
You just keep the running stride going, and then she's going to make the best out of those poles as soon as she hits the steeper part. There we go. She is very comfortable with these poles, which is also a good point because you can optimize your speed or save your legs if you are absolutely efficient with the poles and you do not need to think about it. So that's definitely something. If you've never used poles and you think, oh, I'm going to save a lot of energy by using them, think twice and probably practice in training before you actually try to use them in a race, because it just takes a little bit of coordination, and then both your hands are clipped on usually. Therefore, you don't have access to your nutrition as easily, or your hydration, so it could make you forget about this.
And here's Sophia. So we're looking at about 45 seconds for approximately between the two of them. Back when Judith last won here, she was in second place at the top. Marcella had overtaken her at around Passaportoi, which they've already passed. And that didn't unsettle Judith. Even at the top, Judith wasn't in the lead, and she knew she could flow through. And this was in 2021 when Judith had already had the stroke. She had the issues with the vision, and yet she could still overtake people. So when we've been talking about her not being as good at downhill, that doesn't mean she's still not fantastic at downhill on a field like this.
No, absolutely. And here you see the spectators who are making their way up.
They're not even moving. I mean, we don't want to talk down too much our casual, but look at the speed they're going here, and look at the body language. This tells you how hard this is, that they're struggling to even power hike, and yet you'll see some of our runners actually running this.
Yeah, David. So these guys are making their way up because the col, the refugio, is of Pittsburgh, is the place where there's going to be heaps of people. You can take a cable car up there for those who don't have the stamina to carry themselves all the way up, but still want to see the race and the runners go through. So that is the section in between. So when they're about to hit those switchbacks, which is known as the couloir of hell, and we've seen Karina Carsolio go through, and this is...
I do recognize this runner from Mont Blanc. I believe she is this an American runner? We're trying to find the number right now. She is not someone we expected to be seeing so high up, potentially in 3rd to 5th place. We talked earlier about practicing with poles. Now, you also need to practice the terrain, and that is something Bart has done. Straight after Mont Blanc, he came here. So he has been at altitude this whole time, and he has run this course 4 times. And so part of being able to run and attack the downhill switchbacks is knowing where the route is. And the fact that he's run this several times in the past, but being able to do it 4 times in the last few weeks means that it will be absolutely embedded into his subconscious. So by the time he gets here, he is going to be feeling so confident.
Super confident in the mind, but doing it 4 times in the past couple of weeks is also a bit of a stretch, isn't it? It's always the fine line between course knowledge and feeling confident and knowing that you won't have to think and you will know how to pace every section, because if you know there's the downhill coming up, you can push the last 100 meters of elevation gain and all this. But at the same time, you're working hard at altitude, and is it putting nails in the coffin?
But then we talk about race prep, and Anel has seen in Mont Blanc, he said that he had just a really tough, and here's Sophia. You can see she's leaning on her legs now. Sophia, I might suggest her in the future she practices with poles, because if she's looking like this, poles could certainly be helping her, right?
I know. I'm very confused right here.
Does this mean she's in 3rd?
Well, no, but the thing is, Sophia is a cross-country skier.
Yeah.
She's in the U.S. national team. She is like world class at this, and so I would have bet a lot of money that she would pick up poles at the 6-kilometer mark for that section. Here's Julia Font from Brooks.
Oh, Julia Font, yeah, fantastic. She's been doing a lot of racing in Spain previously, and so hasn't been on the international circuit other than things like the European champs and the world champs, but clearly has the ability. You're right, maybe it just hasn't occurred to her because the majority of the races she's done, she's been racing Nienke, she's been racing Ali Mack. All the people around her don't use poles, and sometimes it just doesn't occur to you that that is a good thing to do. At Mont Blanc, again, it's very runnable. It's something that she wouldn't have thought of. And so maybe once she sees Judith and she sees the other runners, or she gets overtaken by someone, that's when it will click in her mind that it's something good to do.
Yeah, because usually American runners are not familiar with using poles, but the thing is, she's again a cross-country skier. Like this is an extension of her body. She wouldn't
Yeah.
have to think
Yeah.
twice about how to use them, how to like do the transition, pick them up, drop them off. So that's an interesting part, and I hope that we can have a word with her on the finish line and ask her what the strategy was there.
And we've got an update of who that was we saw. And apologies to Scarlett Dale. I was chatting to you, Matt. You've got a very lovely northern accent as well. I think she's from the Fells. So she's our fourth woman at the moment, and we know if she is from the Lake District, she's going to be an incredible descender as well. More used to the wet. Given this is here she is, Scarlett Dale from the UK. This is a fantastic performance for her, and we often see with Golden Trail, the newer runners tend to emerge at races like this that are slightly shorter because being able to run things like Mont Blanc, which are incredibly long, is far more challenging if you're adapting from things like fell racing, from things like vertical kilometers. And so fourth place, I mean, this is a great race for her. Talking about race prep, I was having pizza with Stian yesterday. He drove from Norway on Tuesday to beat the traffic. He did an overnight, drove all the way through the night, 36-hour stint with his dogs where he had 3, I won't say the name of the brand, but 3 energy drinks through the night to get here. That seems like quite aggressive preparation as well. In contrast to Bart, who's been here trying to adapt to altitude, Steers just pulled a 36-hour stint driving. Got to be tiring mentally, but also it's going to massively disrupt your sleep patterns as well. So do we think this could mean could this be catching up with him a little bit?
I mean, I can't say this is beneficial, that's for sure. But then it probably also shows his confidence. And, some people get really onto things and very meticulous about their race prep. And if anything goes out of control or what was something that was not planned, it throw them off. Then it looks like he's just like, okay, I'm going to drive for a long time, and there we go.
And we can see they've dropped back. These are our race leaders. So we're looking at Stian and El Hussein together. Significantly, when they came at Passapoort d'Oie, our 2 other people who were who were leading in that group, Roberto and Fred, chose poles that created a bit of a gap, but the gap is growing. So they're clearly pushing harder still, Stian and El Hussein, which was surprising because at one point it looked as if Fred and Roberto were actually going to be taking control of this race and were looking as if they had more speed in them before they picked up the poles. So it could be that they've settled into a routine in their poles, and quite often you can find poles get you to they're very good for getting you to power hike, but they limit your real top speed up hills sometimes. And it could be that this is a limiting factor, that they're settling into a routine that Stian and El Hussein are able to elevate slightly above. They'll be tiring themselves out by doing that, but to a certain extent, getting up and down out of this altitude can be beneficial because the longer you're staying at this height, the more it's starting to eat into your oxygen stores, the more it's burning glycogen because you burn glycogen at a higher level if you're burning, the more intensive you are running. And so to a certain extent, it's going to be punishing them more, but they're getting out of that faster.
So they're getting out of it faster, and they're opening a gap. But that gap, like from the aerial shots, like Roberto De Lorenzi was not too far back still.
But I'm not sure if that was Roberto because to me that looked like that could be some casual hikers because of the pace they were doing. We will see. We will see.
We will see.
So we're now trying to pick it out. We've got.
They have at least a switchback gap on either Roberto De Lorenzi or Fred Tranchant. So they are opening up the gap. You're right.
They're pushing hard here.
And the question was, they said yesterday, if we don't pace ourselves, this is going to be hard on the other side because it is challenging. You need strength to be not only aware mentally, but also physically to be able to fly through the downhill. And as we explained, when you get to 16.5 kilometers into the race at the Refugio, at the last aid station, you're 16K in, you still have 22Ks to reach the finish line, and that's a long way on a descent that is not steep enough to be able to let go. You do have to push hard. So here it looks like a little bit of a mayhem because there's still a lot of people trying to make their way up to the col. But these are a race leader, Stian Ungermunt and Elusin El Azawi.
And look at this time. They're coming up to a minute. So the record at the top is around 1:14 by Davide Magnini.
So to the top, not to the col.
Ah, okay.
To Pitsboy.
To Pitsboy, okay. So, but this is a sensational pace they're setting now. We're hoping that but having people around you, it can slow you down if they're not getting out of the way, particularly if they're using sticks. So hopefully our cameramen will be... In fact, we don't have a cameraman. We're on drone. They can't keep up.
I think, no, that was the strategy for the cameraman to start with them and then fall back. So we'd have images of the chasing packs and then the lead women.
Yeah, and but having the crowd there, it can give you some energy as well to be able to. You're overtaking people, which mentally is easier to be able to start looking ahead and ticking off positions.
So here, ladies and gentlemen, on your screen, on the right-hand side is the side of Pitsboy, and runners will come around this from the back side and then onto the flat, and then down in the left-hand side valley here on your screen, and then up on the grass. And that section is going to be very, very fast. And they would have start going over this part, exactly. Thank you for the images. That's perfect timing. Onto the technical. And then there's going to be that flatter section where they're going to go crossing the creek and then go into that section where they can choose their line. And let's go. You were going to say something. You've seen something on the screen.
We saw Fred in the white and the yellow further down. He's about 2 switchbacks back. Significantly, I didn't see Roberto there. So Fred is still in the hunting. The angle, though, it's really deceiving when you looked. Fred was probably 2 switchbacks back, but look at the size of the switchbacks. They're actually quite large.
And then this one, look at these 2 gentlemen run up. They've run every single step. And these 2, like neck to neck in every switchbacks, reminds me of Kylian Jornet and Marco Di Gasperi. Back in the days when these 2 were battling it out, Kylian was just coming back from Nepal, and this is when actually he set the course record of 2 hours 00:11 seconds. And I think Marco was like 2:00 and 14 or 16. They finished sprinting, and Kylian got the best of it. But this is how these 2 climbed together. And look at this.
I thought we was overtaking there, but of course he wasn't. Now
he is. He has. While Stian picked up something which could make a difference later in the race. Look at these images. I just want to take a moment to look at those images of Pitsboy in the distance. It's popping out of your screen right now. You can't see it. And this is going to be a gradual, still uphill, but much more runnable. So they're going to be able to open this drag, increase the speed, and probably change a little bit the muscle chain to get shake out the lactic acid in the legs at this point, which would be definitely burning.
Now, they actually have history of not just 2 years ago when they were neck and neck, but in the series finals the year before, El Hussein, the entire 5-day, had been on the shoulder of Stian. And in the final day, there was a strong headwind, and they were in 4th, trying to chase down, I think, Jim Walmsley, and Stian was doing all of the work. He stepped aside and he said to El Hussein, are you going to take some of the lead and share some of running into the swing?
Some of the load, the effort. Yep.
And El Hussein didn't do that, and Stian said, fine, we're not going to chase, because he was trying to make a point of, I am not prepared to do all of the work on this.
So you passed me in the later stages.
Yeah, absolutely, because he knew how it worked. But he's lost his poles, right?
So Fred dropped his poles, but Roberto was actually ahead of him. So Roberto is running in 3rd, and about like 50 to 60 meters back is Fred Tranchant.
This is fantastic. And this is what we want to see, because we know Fred is a downhill runner. Roberto is not a bad downhill runner, but probably won't back himself as much, which creates a battle between the 2 of them. So if you're Fred, the fact that he's ahead isn't so significant, and in some ways it's nice, because it's someone to try and pick off as you're building your speed up to then try and attack Stian and El Hussein. But Stian will be getting flashbacks back to those World Series finals where he was running with El Hussein. Again, It doesn't look like there's wind up there, you can see from the flag. So it's not as if Steen is going to be having to be pulling a lot of the effort into the wind. But mentally, it still can be draining to be deciding the route you're taking, the path you're taking, and setting the pace. And sitting behind can be infuriating to people, which is part of the genius of our scene. Why overtake when you don't have to? Why share the load when you don't have to? He knows he's the fastest runner in the last kilometre, and it means Steen is going to have to make a decision whether he's actually going to really push hard on the technical to try and shake El Hussein off.
And then there's always the question, David, is El Hussein doing this on purpose, or is it still that like glass ceiling that mentally cannot, he doesn't allow himself to be like, I'm going to take control.
Yeah.
I'm going to take control.
And look at our top 10. There are some new names in there we weren't expecting to see. Daniel in 5th. Fantastic race by him so far.
And so that means Team Brooks is doing extremely well because Daniel is Brooks, Roberto De Lorenzi is Brooks, and so another Brooks runner in the top 10. So they've come strong. They've come as a team. They're staying all together in a house, and it's good to see them deliver today, at least as far as we are in the race.
But no Manu in the top. That was the top 9. We didn't see the top 10. I don't think they come through the match yet. But no Manu yet, and there has to be an amount of time that is too much to catch up. When we look at things like Strander, in the women's, for example, Elise said in the press yesterday that she caught up 10 minutes on Sophia from the top to the bottom of Strander, which was a fairly similar route in terms of distances. It was much wetter. I think it was probably harder to run if you're not used to it. And so 10 minutes is a huge gap. Whereas in a race like this, we don't think we'll be seeing those kind of chunks being caught up, but particularly because Manu to the front, he's not chasing down runners who aren't good at technical trail. Both El Hussein and Steen are very, very good over all terrain. Manu's slight favourite on those, as will Bart will back himself against those two. But we're not talking minutes and minutes difference. We're talking seconds, depending on the terrain.
And there we go, Jean-Margaret here on your screen, who's made also his way through the switchbacks. And here he is, Robert Pengboy as well, being done with the switchback, and he's hell of a runner on the flat, so I think he's going to be able to switch gear here and start to make his way higher up. Manuel Innerhofer as well here, who's been discovered thanks to the Dar Golden Trail National Series that he won and qualified to come to the final and fight against the world's best in the Golden Trail World Series, and now he's competing in the World Series.
And look at the sun here already. They're going to be overheating. It's very cold at the top. It's 2 degrees. And as you can see, there's still snow there. But because of the intensity, they're going to be feeling hot already. And when they hit that down and they start to push, suddenly their temperature of their body will change dramatically. They're going to be having wind hitting them. And as they get towards the bottom, it can be quite humid. It rained very strongly 2 days ago. And so their temperatures will start to be playing on their mind a little bit. And we saw 2 years ago, El Hussein was struggling towards the end of the race because he hadn't taken enough nutrition. He started with that bottle. He dropped it early. So will that be a factor as well? But you can see here the difference in speeds as they're coming up now. The people with the poles and the runners. And, the fact that they're still running is really impressive to see.
So, David, let's take a moment here and think about the women's race. As much as we don't have the images yet, we've seen Judith Bieder in the lead and running within herself in that first climb. She was followed by Sophia Laocle that we saw in the images, and my assumption was that for the first 30, 40 minutes, she would try to pace herself and potentially would go through a little bit of a tough time because she had pain in her lungs. But then it was confirmed that she could go past that point and then actually end up starting to race at her best. So she's just going to have to mentally grind through that tough time and then come out the other side to be ready to race. But then we haven't had much images yet of what's happening behind. Who do you believe is sitting in third, like is completing the top 5 in the women's race? We got a tiny glimpse of Karina Carsolio.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've missed anyone. Obviously, Scarlett Gale in 4th.
And we saw Iris was performing well as well. Of those, we'd say that Carrie's got a good all-round game. She lives about an hour outside of Mexico City. She's used to this kind of altitude, this kind of terrain. We saw that she picked up places 2 years ago to come third, and we'd expect her to be racing well. Scarlett Dell, her background, she will be a good technical trail runner. Given, in fact, we think she's from the Lake District. We're looking into that as we speak. So she's someone we'd also think would do well. Iris, we wouldn't expect to necessarily hold the pace she's been on so far.
She said she was going to play her cards in the uphill, so she will be at her best. But then again, she said there has been days where she's done extremely well, and at a sky race, for example, she could hold off Elsa Davis.
Wow, and Elsie she's come more from a road running background, so she's taken to more ultra races, and so actually Elsie's got a cool head on her, but she hasn't quite got that experience yet. She only really switched because she was getting so many injuries trying to qualify for the Olympics and the marathon and the Commonwealth Games of marathon distance. So. But we haven't got reports yet from where Elise is in our field. Marlon Osser as well. She has said,
yes.
I mean, she's a good all-round runner, but she really excels in incredibly steep uphills and incredibly steep downhills. And Martin has already talked about a little bit about when they get past the Forcella Pordoi, there's some smooth running, but the very peak itself is incredibly steep. Incredibly steep, and that's where she'll start to kick in.
And that's where Davide was that was one of his favorite races, part of the race, where it was a Via Ferrata section where you use your hand, you're scrambling up, and he said, like, if you can be light on your feet and just manage your way up the race, you can really make a difference. And so whoever is comfortable on that, I believe Karen Ecosoli will be up there as well. So I think we have a lot to be seeing. Quick commercial break.
Welcome back to the Dolomyths run. We're an hour and 10 in, and to me, we're almost coming up to the halfway mark. We are here now with, is this Judith who is handing over a pole?
It is, right there, right above from an aerial shot. Judith Vider leading the women's race here at just the Forcella Pordoi, which is the very famous part. You just come out of the switchback, the couloir of hell. This is Gabrielle, her partner, who's come also to cheer her on, and she will be getting all the details, all the splits, whatever he could have spotted, and then obviously probably he would know the right words to say to Judith to send her off on the way up for the last part of the climb up to Pitsboy, and then at this point it will be all downhill. A bit of a slippage here.
And that's the thing, you're coming into snow and it's a completely different change of terrain. You've got to be constantly thinking. And when Judith said this is the hard part, is how to push hard but save enough so that you can concentrate. You're using about a third of your glucose for your brain when you're racing and when you're using up your glycogen stores. And so if you've burnt too much, it makes it harder to make these decisions. But and she's not too far behind. She's still on the switchbacks, but she's clearly getting settled in. She's taking out her gels now.
Exactly. She is still in control. She's looking back. Karen Eckersol, you're right there, ladies and gentlemen. She is right there. So it will be an interesting battle. And we were saying, the battle will happen.
Yeah.
It has yet to happen. Now what's happening here with these two gentlemen? They are still quite a ways off the very top. And so I want to keep my eyes on the clock because the best time uphill from Canadze to Pitsboy is 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 51 seconds. And it was achieved by Davide Manini. So if you've been looking on the website of the Dolomyths Skyrun, it is not accurate. There is a faster time, and Davide explains to us.
Sophia is looking very fluid already. She's still in the hunt.
I mean, she's a cross-country skier. Put her on snow, she'll move fast.
Now, the fact that Carrie is behind her and close behind her could actually be good news for Sophia.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know this terrain.
Oh, and here Anders.
Anders won our downhill segments in our finals last year and 3 years ago. He is an incredibly aggressive downhill runner. But the fact that Sophia has Carrie behind her could be a good thing. She knows she's going to be quicker down at the bottom, but for Sophia, she needs to be forced out of her comfort zone and also be given confidence to run cutting across the track. And the way she'll get that confidence is by seeing other people do it comfortably, and she'll realize she can do it herself. So if she can stay with Carrie close to her, this could be really, really powerful for changing how she attacks that descent.
So that was a really cool images there of Forcella Pordoi, and then in the distance was the summit of the race, 3,150 meters of altitude, Pitsboy, where our two men's leader are making their way.
And we see them there. They're in there somewhere.
Right up there on the top of your screen, these two black dots are Elouzine El Azaoui in second and opening the race once again. Stian Ungermunt, they've already gone through a little section where you need to put your hands. Actually, they were on the bottom of your screen. I got confused there, but there they are, and they've already gone through a little section where you need to scramble your way up, and there's gonna be more of that. I'm looking at the clock, and they are, as much as they looked like they were on a crazy pace, probably burned a little too many matches way too early on, and now have settled into a crazy pace. Yet not course record pace.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the course record isn't still on, although it's looking like they probably won't get to the peak in the next minute, because Davide has twice run under 2:01. One of the times he was a minute slower on his up.
A minute and a half slower, and yet still managed to have a faster downhill. And that was the second time. That was on the course that these runners will use and will take today. So it is not out of the question. However, that 2 hour mark, it is a tough one. It is a tough one to break.
And Davide is a good downhill runner, and he's run this course 5 times before as well. So he knew the cut, he knew when to attack. But
so this is Scarlett.
Is looking. Oh, is she taking a slightly wrong route there?
No. There's two options. You'll see she'll go across. So she took maybe the most direct one. Good reading, but got to be stopped there. Scarlett, who's I'm assuming is sitting in fourth. So first would be Judith, second Sophia Laukli, third Karina Carsolio, and Scarlett Dale would be running in fourth. Probably some 2 to 3 minutes back from Judith.
And Scarlett hasn't really done that much international running before. It looks like her background has come more from track. She's got like a 4:25 1,500 meter time and 5,000 meters. She's been in kind of 1640 kind of territory. So she's only recently transitioned to trail. But
so there's been some back and forth while you were looking at those results. Actually, Elouzine was leading up, but then he took the wrong way, and then Stian, looking up, took the fastest way up, like a straight line, and then he regained the lead. So maybe that's also a factor that tells Elouzine, hey, if you try to take the lead, you're just going to go wrong. You're just going to go wrong. So stay put.
But clearly, it's showing a newfound confidence in him, and he knows he needs to change something to win, because he has, I believe, the most second places in the Golden Trail without a win. He is by far the most talented runner who has returned consistently and has never taken that top spot. And so everyone has been talking to him like, when, is this the race? Is it going to change? So he knows he needs to attack. And actually, he should have won Zagama in my mind. He was in a position where if you were running with Manu and you're getting close to the town, 2 kilometers out from the town,
you pull away.
you attack. And he didn't. And because of that, coming into the town, there was a little bit of slightly more technical trail that Manu then managed to shake him off. But if El Hassoun had attacked earlier, he would have broken him and got clean through. But we can see them coming up to the peak now. And they're quite significantly down on our fastest ever.
3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean...
That's 3 minutes down, so they're going to have to do a hell of a descent if they want to actually be able to break the 2-hour mark. I think this... I might be speaking too soon, and that's not even the summit yet, so it'll be closer to 3.5.
Now, big news.
Minutes back.
Big news in the women's that excites me more than anything else so far. Malin is now up to 4th. She's still 2 minutes back on Karina, who is 20 seconds back on Sofia. But Malin is making moves. She has got the ability over this next third of the race to really close in on that podium position. So could we be seeing a first podium for Malinosa from the Basque region? Sara Alonso's little sister, in many ways, an incredibly good technical runner. And this next 6 kilometers are perfect for her to start launching an attack.
And I like Malin in the way that she speaks her truth. And, you know, sometimes when we ask athletes, what do you think? Where do you think you can get? Malin was like, you know, I am friend with all these girls in the series. But when I have a bib on, it's on.
Yeah.
And so I think just like Elusine, she has the confidence that she can be up there, and if she can smell the podium, she will go for it.
And if you want to know if someone bleeds trail, she's studying at Mont Dragon, I believe it's called. Dragon Mountain University is where she is currently studying environmental engineering. So if you're worried if someone's going to attack, if they go to Mount Dragon, you're damn right they're going to attack. Now, this is our race leaders. They've just
and
taken
look at
off
that,
the front.
look at that. Something's happening.
Yeah, Steen is starting to show his technical skill.
No. That's Elusine pulling away. That's Elusine pulling away.
El Hassoun. Well, I mean, this is incredible to see. And 3-4 years ago, El Hassoun wasn't known as being a really technical downhill runner. Strangely, because of his technique of just sitting in behind someone and not making any decisions, he's probably learned faster than most runners how to do technical terrain, because he's never had to make terrain. He's never had to make those decisions of, do I attack? He's just learned from the very best descenders and just followed them over these terrains. And now it's probably second nature for him to just flow through it.
Well, or maybe first nature, because he lives in Morocco. He's got the Atlas massive in his backyard, and that is rocky, technical, dry, and also high. So maybe he's also familiar with this. And
here's Elise. Elise is
that's
8
what we
minutes
want to
back.
see.
She's already, the fact she's caught up in Iris. As we said, she caught up 10 minutes in Stranda on Sofia.
But Iris had announced she would go all out in the uphill. Hopefully, these two, they're very good friends. Oh, look at the gap! Look at the gap!
El Hassoun, he is making his mark. He is clearly putting down a marker that he wants to win this.
Something has happened here, and for one of the first time, he's actually taken the lead. However, you remember, history is potentially repeating. He was leading Stian when he ended up
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and Stian still managed to reel him in the last section on the rolling part. He had still enough in the tank, and that's the issue with Elusine. If he's not fueling as much, he's going to be running on fumes at the end on that last part, precisely where you need to have an extra gear to push yourself to the finish line at a fast pace.
So at this point, 2 years ago, Steen was in 4th place, and El Hassoun had a 2-minute lead over Steen, and yet Steen managed to catch up. I believe this is a very different story there. And look at our cameraman who's just given up trying to chase him. I understand. You did well, sir. Take a bow. But El Hassoun is aware that how good that Steen can be, and that Steen can judge his race pace. The fact that he's attacking now, I believe El Hassoun knows his nutrition better than he has. Mont Blanc wasn't a reflection of that. He was tired. He travelled from Morocco 3 flights to get there, and he came into that race. We need to judge him based more on Zagama. And in Zagama, He paced it perfectly. He got his nutrition right. And it's not too hot here today. And you can see we've got the flags here, and this is where they get to decide what route are they going to take.
So there's going to be a flatter section here, and then they're going to run through grass. And he's still taking the time to look back. He knows he's pushed hard. And the fact that Stian, because if he's in the lead 10, 20 meters ahead of Stian, that's an advantage to Stian. Now he's too far.
Look at the striding out here. Look at the speed. Who is this we're following? I can't tell from here, but this... Oh, they slightly lost, but this is a tremendous pace for someone who's attacking. I don't think it's Robert, because Robert's wearing red. And we're just losing the shot slightly there. But, yeah, I mean, I do think El Hussein will get his nutrition right today. And we saw that in conditions like this where it isn't too hot, he has the ability now. He's learned. And we can see the times here. These are slightly wrong. These are from the 10K mark. This is from Pisboe right at the top. We are now about 4 minutes ahead of this, and El Hussein has taken the lead. But significantly, Roberto was only 30 seconds down.
And 37 seconds down was Fred Tranchant, who, we know he can run downhill.
Did we see Manu in there? It wasn't up for long enough for me to actually have a look. So we're going to ask our spies, where is Manu? And how many minutes behind is he at that peak? But we expect to see Fred starting to make a move from this point on. So it wouldn't surprise me the next time we see them if he's on the shoulder of Roberto or indeed has overtaken Roberto. Whether Fred has got the ability to catch Stian, they'd be pretty close. But he will know. He'll be able to see where Stian is. And Stian is a very... In fact, was this Roberto here?
That's Roberto and Daniel Pattis together with Fred Tranchant.
So, the fact there's three of them there now. So Daniel has already caught them.
He was actually pretty close after the call. And this is, I believe, we're back with Elucine, who keeps looking back. He's running scared now. He knows that Stian has already managed to reel him in once.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to pull away.
And normally when a runner looks back that much, it's a real sign that they're tired. But with El Hussein, it's hard to predict what this means because we've never really seen him leading before to know how he's going to react. And he wants to know that his efforts are making a difference. And he is making a dent on Stian by putting in the effort there. So hopefully he'll be drawing comfort from seeing how much he's pulling away there and that actually his effort is making a difference. But we've already talked about Daniel Pattis. This is a great performance for him. When we last checked at the 8-kilometer point, he was 40 seconds behind Fred Tranchant. So he clearly has been pushing hard on the up. And this
is Mattia.
This is Mattia.
I think so.
Who was back in 8th place, tracking Theo Burgess, Borgos in 7th. So he's looking fluid. He's yet to really get to the peak, we don't believe. We're still getting the timings coming through. But there we see, that is El Hussein, who's just passed. And behind is that Stian. There's a bit... We're just trying to figure out exactly what shots we're seeing
So
here.
that was Théo Bourgeois from Team Brooks, my bad, from France. That we saw in the images, the blonde young man, number 804.
Look at the scenery here, though. This is set up for classic après ski. If you've not been here in the winter, they've got some incredible slopes. But we can see how close the race is for the places behind. Super tight, all 4 of them within sight, and they can still see the runners ahead. And this is a real good opportunity for the runners to be able to assess how much they want to attack and how many places they think they're going to be able to pick up in the next 5K or so. But significantly, we're seeing a lot of the men's here, but in the women's, all 3 of our podium places will be able to see each other. And in fact, in 4th and 5th, Scarlett and in fact, the top 4 are within 2 minutes of each other. So they'll all be able to start assessing how they're feeling and whether they need to start attacking hard or trying to set into a rhythm down the slopes.
So on the images you see, like where you saw the refugees boy, then there's a little bit of a kick that we saw on the images, and that runners could see whoever was in front of them way in the distance, and they're going to Antersas, and then this is truly when the whole downhill kicks off. We still haven't had our first woman here at the top of Pitsboy. This is the 8th station, and you see the sun is shining, the temperature are much warmer than anticipated. We're expecting some 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. It won't be warm. It is once again at 3,150 meters of elevation, but there's no wind and the sun is shining. So that is going to be okay for the runners to still wear their little singlet and actually just pick up gloves. I've talked to a few female runners actually who said that once they get to that point, they'll pick up gloves for the downhill.
And with the gloves, is that the confidence to know if you fall, or is it because it allows you to grab the rocks and push off, and it gives you a slight more grip to be able to play with what's around you?
Probably a little bit of both, I would say, but definitely for the downhill. Like if you take a tumble, you know you can safely put your hands before anything else hits the ground. So that was the idea. And even I asked, like, is it going to be mitts with the visible fingers? And it's like, no, it's going to be 4 fingers, full protection.
And if you're looking for gloves to use yourself, hockey gloves can often be really good because they've got some super grip on them for playing, and a lot of trail runners don't think to do that. We haven't really seen Bart yet. We did.
We did when they were on their way up from Refuge of Pitsboy. He was in the distance in the red, probably sitting in the back end of the top 10, but I still believe he was in the top 10.
And it surprised me that Daniel had passed Bart so easily. So maybe Bart is relaxing, or maybe he's not. He's struggling with the altitude a bit. We saw when he went to America, he moved there 2.5 weeks in advance to try and get used to the altitude of Pikes Peak. And it didn't pay off. He really struggled in that race. Even when he went to Flagstaff a week afterwards, he was just having a real difficulty with his breathing. He's raced here before, and he felt confident because he'd moved here 3 weeks ago, straight after Mont Blanc, that he'd had time to adjust. But also previously when he'd raced, the altitude hadn't affected him, because you start at 1,400 meters and you're not actually going into that kind of death zone over 2,700 for too long.
Yeah.
So hopefully that hasn't affected him too much. But if he starts to struggle with his breathing, it will be at the back of his mind. And he'll be wanting to get out of this high elevation as soon as he can. Now we're seeing the runners come over our peak, come over Pitsboy. This is the 10-kilometer mark. They're 1:30 in, but actually it's closer to halfway through the race.
From a time perspective, it is definitely past halfway. Yeah. But yeah, as you said, 10 kilometers up, 12 kilometers down, and what's the course record for the down?
So the course record for the down, we haven't been on all the Stravas. Officially on the website, it goes back to 2007, which we suspect is incorrect. It was Fabio Bonfanti, 43:37. But given what the record time previously of Kilian's at the time he got, Kilian must have run faster than that in his 4 wins that he's had here previously. In terms of the women's, the fastest time I've found has been Judith, who on the website it says 58 minutes, but Judith has run a 49:03 according to Strava in 2019. I can't think of any other runners who would have got close to that time until today, maybe.
And potentially before Elise Ponce. We haven't had her time. But then, speaking of Judith, she is freezing a little bit on your images, but on the top left corner of your screen, we're going to see her from that fixed camera coming into the aid station any second now. Judith Wieder representing Team Hoka and currently leading the females race up at the highest point. There she is, right there.
And she certainly won't be freezing in terms of her temperature. It's around 2 degrees at the top, but she'd have been pushing so hard that she will not have an issue of being too cold. She'll have immense confidence right now. 2 years ago when she came over this mark, she was chasing down Marcella. You can see she's slowing down to make sure she's got her nutrition right. She's just checking how she's feeling. It's quite intimidating now looking down and seeing that downhill. She did say in the press conference she was nervous about the downhill. It's been some time since she's run technical trail quite like this.
As you would indeed, but also something else that she said was that at World Champs she had the second best time in the descent, but the woman who had the best time also had the seventh or the sixth. It was the
fastest time overall
amongst the men. So overall, Judith is still a massive downhill runner, and we'll see that very shortly on the images. Hopefully, it doesn't freeze for too long, and we can see how flowy her downhill will be.
And this is something athletes will do. They'll dissect their race afterwards. Some of it is to see how they learn, but some of it is also because if you are feeling low in confidence, or if you're not quite sure how you're stacking up against the current runners out there, you've had some time off, it really allows you to get that confidence back.
But David, at the top, some two more women have gone through, and this is important to mention that. Judith Wider went through Pitsboy in 1 hour 31:57, in 1 hour 32:13, which is a mere 17 seconds back, is Sophia Laukley. She is coming back, and as anticipated, now she's starting to push a little harder. And then in 1:32:41, so just under 30 seconds later, from second place was Karina Carsolio, who we know can run downhill like a demon.
And this is where, being an Olympian like Sophia, that competitive spirit locks in, and you just kick into overdrive. And she is going to need that. She's going to need that emotion to override her fear, to start taking some cuts. We've also had an update from Manu that he was only 3 minutes down at the top in 12th position. 3 minutes seems achievable for someone like Manu.
It just depends on how good of a day Stian and Elusin have, because we've seen clearly on the images that Elusin was pedal to the metal, and he had chosen even to pull away from Stian at this point. So making ground on these two gentlemen will be hard. As somebody said in the chat earlier, Manu is from Picos de Europa in the northern part of Spain, and this is a very similar type of mountain, very steep, very rocky, so he will feel just like home on that section, on that steeper section. But the thing is, indeed, 3 minutes, too much, not enough.
I mean,
we will see.
If you'd have told me yesterday 3 minutes, is it achievable on Manu, I would put it in that region of that is possible. He's come from behind in so many races. In Zagama, he was in, and in fact, here we have it. These are our top 10. You can see he's now in 9th, 2:29.
At 2:29, and there's a little bit of a mistake here again. Don't get confused. At Pitsboy, it's 10K into the race, so there's 12Ks left to go, mostly downhill with a little bit of a kick after Refugio Boy.
But 22 seconds, Elisina's has pulled away, which is, that's good. It's looking good, but 2:29 for Manu. This is and the fact he's now with Bart. They've raced together in Stranda. It was 1-0 to Manu. The fact he's already caught up Bart, who was backing himself on this terrain, shows you that Manu really wants this. He was 4th at the top of Zagama. He won that. He was back in 18th in Zagama 2 years ago and came 3rd. He was back in 11th at Mont Blanc and came 3rd previously. So it just shows you that he has got the ability to eat up miles, and so we know he is going to be able to see a lot of people in front of him, and he'll be picking them off one by one. Watch out the front. Manu is coming.
We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. And actually, I got confused because then when you talked about the splits, it was at Refugio Pitsboy and not the actual Pitsboy. So that was correct on the screen. My apologies. I hope I didn't mislead too many people, because it was 1.5 kilometers after the summit at Refugio Pitsboy, where you say it was perfect for après-ski, and at the bottom of the last, little bit of a kick before diving fully down into that last descent.
But it looks as if the men's race is far more grouped than the women's. If we look at the times that they've been spread out, to have Elise significantly far back, you'd have to question whether she's got the ability to catch up Judith, the amount of time she needs to compare. And in fact, here is Judith. She's looking fairly fluid. The fact that she's got runners ahead of her is going to be useful for her, because she'll be able to use them to pick the line. She's looking pretty good. She's looking pretty fluid. I'd say this is similar to the Judith we'd expect. And she's not looking tired at all. She's looking light on her feet, which is really good for right now. We can't see Sophia in the background yet. She was only around 20 seconds down on her at the peak, so Judith is already pulling away, I believe.
That would be a safe bet. And look at her. She is composed. She is extremely focused. She knows she needs to pay great attention to the terrain, to her footing.
So you can see there, that was a cut there. You see that the trail goes right and left. She just came straight down, and this is where the course knowledge is super useful.
Yeah, and look at that stride. Look at that stride and how strong she's moving here. She has a much longer stride than Sophia Lockley, who's more like a bit of a shuffling, which really helps on the downhill, on the uphill, sorry, actually, because you're really tiptoeing it, putting a less of an effort, stretching your muscle a little less, stressing them a little less.
And actually, shuffling can be very, very tiring when you're going downhill because you're not lifting your feet quite as much and you're more likely to catch on rocks. And so we saw at the end of Mont Blanc, she very much changed her body position when she was going downhill.
And he keeps looking back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Elusine El Azawi on his way to the finish, and he's just looking more back than forward. It is quite insane. He's seeing runners coming from left, right, and center, and they're probably getting worried that he took the wrong way, but this is not a competitor that you see on the top of your screen. Don't get fooled. But that will be scary. That will be scary for Elusine to be like, whoa, 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 did I took the wrong way? Somebody reading me up.
And you can see the red flags here. So the rules are you have to stay within 10 meters of the red flags. So he'll be able to get a little bit of freestyle in the route he wants to pick, have some slightly more aggressive corners than sticking to the route. He's still looking pretty fluid.
Yeah, so he'll go through. I was going to say.
He's stopping for, oh, that's not a good sign. He's stopping for water already.
Well, he is stopping for water, which is good, because remember, he used to absolutely not even do that. So the fact that he has the awareness of, maybe I need to drink a little bit, he knew he was going to cross that creek, has gone for it, barely lost any second. So I think this is a good move. This is a new Elusine El Azawi that we're seeing on the images today.
But it does make me question, if you're stopping for water, why don't you have a water bottle in your hand? He started with it, and he dumped it within the first kilometre. And actually, drinking in the first 10K is what saves you now, because by the time you're thirsty in a race like this, it's too late. You can't get the liquid into your body fast enough. And so, to me, that is already a bit of a mistake. And we saw him at Mont Blanc 2 years ago, actually ducking his head into...
Look at this.
Who's coming?
Stian has been overtaken by Roberto and Daniel Pattis, and then Fred Tranchant is charging too. So now we've got second, third, fourth, and fifth men running in a group, just far enough apart to be able to take advantage of the line, whoever is in front of you.
And we really didn't expect to see this, given Stian's experience on this course before. Could it be, I mean, he has raced the 40K at the World Championships, which he won. But having a race of that distance means it is still in your legs. And that could be something that he's starting to feel now. And Fred, we thought, would be catching up more. But clearly these Brooks runners, Daniel must be a very good downhill technical runner as well.
He looked extremely smooth.
And the fact there's 4 of them there, you often find with big groups, they have group intelligence. There are more eyes on the course, and it means someone is always able to look slightly ahead. They're making fewer decisions, and that is less tiring on the brain. So the fact they're a hunting pack of 4 could be useful for them for more efficiency on the course. But El Hussein, looking back at that 4, it could unsettle him, but actually it's probably quite useful because he can see where they are rather than having to pick out individuals.
Oh, and
he can see there's a group together.
Here he is.
This is Manuel
Merias, bib number 1, leading the Golden Trail World Series at this point, ex aequo with Remy Bonnet, who's actually not here. They're a bit further than 5K to go.
They've got more than 5K for sure because they're still running some slightly technical terrain. He's not looking as he's pushing as hard as I thought he would. I guess it's not as technical in these stages. This is the more runnable element. And
Mattia is right with him. Mattia is in the best position possible because he's going to be able to pick his line and stay with him and take advantage of his reading of the terrain. Sorry.
Now, in terms of this downhill, when they reach kilometer 16 of Fina Pian Val Lastis, it is incredibly steep down. It's similar to the very first peak off the top of Piz Boyer, but it's a longer descent. They're going to be dropping 400 meters in half a kilometer. Did you hear that? In fact, I've got that wrong. It's 50 meters a minute. that would be just jumping out of the plane, which I'm sure they'd be prepared to do if it's going to help in their race. But they're looking at some significant drops of around 300 meters in half a kilometer. This is insane descending. It's our steepest descent in this route, and it's a very long descent as well. So he's going to be seeing them and knowing that is coming. And that is the point where Manu will attack. He needs to be catching up with our leaders by the bottom of that, because by the bottom, when he gets to Pian Chiaviat Feniz, there's around 5k left to go, and it's far more runnable. That's when it is returning the advantage into runners like Stian and runners like El Hussein. So that is the point where we're going to know where Manu stands a chance of coming back for the win and those podiums. We've also heard an update that Karina is around a minute behind Judith. So Judith is pulling out a lead over Karina, and we believe Sophia as well at this stage. Looking at the course, we'd expect it, and there is some good, solid, clean running from around kilometer 13 through to kilometer 16, where it'll be far more even between our leading group of women. But we're yet to find out where Elise is and how much ground she is picking up, because she's only relatively recently been over the top herself.
Yeah, and so starting in the descent, Judith has shown that she could move still relatively smooth and fast, and she's still in the lead. But Karina Carsolio has taken the second place. She has overtaken Sofia Lauchley at this point, so it means that she's in great form, and she's clearly wanting to make the best out of that downhill, which she already did a few years back. So Karina Carsolio now in second.
Yeah.
Is she going to chase down Judith Wieder?
And we've not seen enough of... Carrie came here 2 years ago, having only really raced in North America. And she came from fourth to get third. And look at the fluidity down. You can see how well they're running here. But she had an incredibly good race to come third. But after that, there weren't as many technical races in our series. It went to Sierra Zanal, which is far more of a road runner's course. And so we've not really had the opportunity to get a sense of how good she is on technical terrain. And so today we're really going to find out just how good she can be, because a minute isn't a huge amount of time. We know that Judith has got miles in her legs. She's run the world champ. She's done well at the 40k. She could be tired because of that, though. And so Carrie certainly has the ability to, on these shorter races, when she's got that fast pace, to be able to reel her in. But we're now looking at our men's fields, and we're just trying to figure out exactly who that is. But in the men's, the story is that El Hussein is still pushing hard. He had a 22-second lead the last time we checked, but there was a pack of 4 runners all together who were then in prime position to try and attack back. And behind them, we saw that Manu was making moves.
I actually was going to say, like, we haven't seen Robert Penboy, and there he is on your images. So he's far outside of the top 10. Here, Jean-Marguerite and Luca De Pero also a bit further back, and followed by Robert Penboy. So some of the big names didn't quite make it to where they were expected to be seen. There he is.
And we knew that Robert had some issues with his Achilles. He had some difficulties at the Gamma, and even carrying it into Mont Blanc. He's not been able to train in the way he'd hoped, and so it's unfortunate to see, and fair play for him for still running on what I imagine is quite a lot of immense pain. We now have an update also on our men's on the last split they came through at the 1 hour 23 mark. So we're still 20 minutes down. Not particularly useful, but Daniel Pattis has been running incredibly good. He's a Brooks runner from Italy, and as you mentioned, we're seeing some other, like Theo Bourgeois is running very well as well, and Mattia Bertononi from Salomon, Italy as well. He is up in the mix. So we've got a lot of new names who, 2 Italian runners in our top 10, which is great to see. Bart at this stage was down in 9th with Manu just on his shoulder. So since then, Manu has been making moves. Bart clearly isn't feeling in the form he'd hoped to be in.
And with the women's, just can't wait to have images, David, because Karina Carsolio has passed Sofia Laukli, but Sofia had mentioned that whenever she would potentially be reeled in a descent, like if she could actually switch on, physically she feels like she's able to keep up, she just doesn't have the confidence. But if she's able to latch onto Karina Carsolio on that descent and follow her lead, she could really benefit from having a world-class downhill runner in front of her, and then potentially gain some terrain and pull away from at least the rest of the field and whoever is coming back, because Malinosa is also chasing, and we know that she's very strong as a Basque runner.
Yeah, and even yesterday, Sophia was saying she was going to wing it. She wasn't sure whether she was going to cut, but she did say she wouldn't give up if the other runners were overtaking her. So she's mentally prepared for the fact that she may be overtaken down these more technical terrains.
So I'm a bit confused here, because I'm pretty sure we weren't close to any aid station, and there was some handing over flasks. Not too sure about
this is
how.
Fred. Fred is looking smooth though. And
so he's now leading the group of the chasing group.
Wow.
He was at the back. I mean, there's not a huge gap, but I think to me the biggest point is that Stian is falling back. Roberto De Lorenzi and Daniel Pattis are chasing, and I think they're in a perfect position if they can just follow Fred's line. Fred, who's like, again, world-class orienteering runner, he will be able to pick the best line, and if they can follow that, it will benefit from his reading of the terrain.
But if you see this terrain, this is where El Hussein can make some real headway. He's incredibly fast. We saw in the final stage of the Golden Trail Series finals, he was working with Petra Mamu. He dropped Thibaut to win second overall in the series. He's got incredible fast 10K time, and so he will be using this smoother terrain to really get his head down. The fact that he can't see people behind him will probably help as well, because he's not going to be looking back and using some energy.
He's going to keep looking back to see what's happening.
But the fact that you won't be able to see what's happening behind, and look at Stian here. He's being dropped by that group. He's looking quite tired, isn't he? And the camera runner there just moving out of the way.
But he knows that, like, the refuge is going to be still about a K down the road. But he knows that he has reeled in Elucine later at this stage in the race, and he's looking at his watch. He knows the splits, he knows the course, and he's not one to give up. So let's not bury him right now. And of course, and like the runners ahead are like pulling away slightly, but he knows the course. Maybe he's like, I got one more gear.
And he's won OCC in the past. He's won Mont Blanc Marathon in the past. You know, he's used to running at these longer distances, and also he's lived in the pain cave for many years. He's run in races where it hasn't gone to plan, and he's recovered. So the fact that he's being dropped slightly now.
So it looks like Elucine is about to get to the aid station here. Sorry, David, I cut you.
Yeah, please cut away.
There he is. There he is. All right. So
how's he looking? He's looking good. I wouldn't say he's looking as fluid. Oh no, actually, no, he is. He was a little bit uphill.
Spring on his legs.
Yeah, he is. And no, he is flowing well actually. And if you look back at, I mean, Fred was looking very fluid as well, but do we think he's daring to dream yet? Do we think he's thinking, I've got this? The question is whether El Hussein will have spies telling him on the time splits, and I don't know if he will late at that stage of the race. More of the people that we know from the course tend to be at the first aid station because they want to get back to the finish. So he's more likely to be in the dark at this stage of the race. But let's count how many seconds it is before he looks back, because if he's not looking back, that to me suggests he's confident he has a sizable lead. But yeah, he's looking fluid, he's flowing. Could this be the very first win? Less than 10 minutes or so until the finish line.
And he's just been told that he's got the 30 seconds.
Even my French is good enough to know what this is. Greg on the bike who's directing.
Yep, giving the splits.
And if we look at the last 10 minutes we've got, this is all smooth running coming up for him now in these last 10 minutes. They've got over the most technical section. This is all terrain that El Hussein should be able to run very smoothly.
That being said, the person, there we go, Fred Tranche on your images, who was leading the chasing pack.
And Stian's back up.
He has a sub 30 minutes on 10K.
I did not know this about Fred.
Fred can run extremely fast. He did that on the 10,000 on the track. The year he actually set the second best time in CRC now during COVID years. So he can move really, really quick if he still has gas in the tank. And as you said, Stian has moved back. So he knows the course. He will pace himself perfectly. Nothing is done until they cross the finish line. And we are close to 7 minutes away from the 2-hour mark. Is that going to be too much? Probably.
And the fact that Fred and Stian are together is going to be beneficial to them. When you're running with someone, you don't feel the pain quite as much as by yourself. And so they're going to be able to hear the bike and the runner at some point. So there's two of them working together to try and track El Hussein. And so they have all been in positions like this before and won from here. And so it's this nice little cut from El Hussein. I like it.
I don't think it's a cut, but at least it's more comfortable terrain than the rocks. And then, yep, he's putting back on the track. So he's being careful. Maybe there was a flag over there.
Yeah.
He's choosing to try to follow the route by the book.
But this will be the first victory for El Hussein in his career. And look at this, how smoothly he's dropping the bike, which is super impressive. But we knew coming into this that...
So look at this. He's stopping because Greg obviously is a world-class mountain biker, and he's filmed so many races before. He knows that we want to see the gap. And look at this.
But they cannot, the runners will not be able to see El Hussein. But significantly, as soon as they hit Greg, they'll be getting an update on the time. But this feels like an eternity to run in the last 6 to 8 minutes left. This is a big gap. You'd be thinking right now, El Hussein is probably going to have to get lost and look, this is what happens when you put too much into the beginning of the race or your nutrition goes wrong. It's only 22K, but this can feel like a very long way when you are gassed, because they're still at around 1,600 meters above, about 1,700 meters above sea level at this stage in the race.
And here, Théo Bourgeois also going through that aid station.
But we're hoping to get some updates on the women's quite soon. Because
David, still no one's gone through.
Wow, it just shows you what happens when you're pushing hard against each other.
And Greg told him he only had say 30 seconds lead. that's well over a minute.
I mean, is that cruel or is that? And here we go. This is our second
This is Fred Tranchant here.
And Stian is still on his shoulder.
Oh, Stian is coming back now. He's making the move.
Oh wow, this is great to see. I mean, and they are looking fluid as well. And Stian is looking supremely fast as well.
Not giving up the chase.
Wow, so our three podium places are all up in the air. This is fantastic running. And this is exactly what we're expecting from everyone coming out on these shorter distances. And we just didn't know based off the last two races if people still had that raw pace. And they've all got that raw pace at this stage in the race.
Yeah, and some had chosen not to go on the marathon distances, like Fred Tranchant. He's chosen not to do Zegama, not to do Mont Blanc Marathon, stick to shorter races, more intense, and to have the speed to currently be sitting in second place right now.
And Fred has run quite a lot of races already this season, but they've been shorter races, and that means he can recover from them quicker, and so he's not going to have as much tiredness in his legs. It could be because El Hussein had such a bad Mont Blanc that he wasn't able to push as hard as he would have been. But here's our leader, Judith, our lead female. She's still looking magnificent. She's not looking tired at all. She had a minute lead last time we checked, and running like this, you'd think she's going to be hard to track back. She's got about 20 minutes left until she gets to the finish. So she's in a really good position now. She's coming up relatively soon to the last aid station. And when she hits that point, she knows it's just smooth running from then on in. And that is playing back to her strengths.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused here, because that is not an aid station.
It's true. She's just about to hit some quite technical downhill. About 20 minutes out. Yeah,
So now she's going to be dropping down into those switchbacks that you can cut. So, and here's Sophia. So it looks like she's... Wait, how... Karina was supposed to be...
The last update
Oh,
we
yeah,
had.
Karina is back here up here in the gray T-shirt. So there we go. Sofia has made the move and has passed again, regained second place. So let's see what she can do. She's less than a minute back.
She is looking fast, actually. She is looking. If we compare to how she looked at the end of Mont Blanc, she was. Oh wow. She is attacking this.
Oh, yeah, it's on. It is on for Sofia Laukli.
And it looks to me as if she's running slightly faster than Judith did over similar terrain. And so, in the last 5 kilometers, you would predict that Sofia will be running faster than Judith would over the last 5K because she has a faster, flat-out pace. She's going for nutrition still.
I like that. I like to see that. She is on top of it, and she's going to need it for these last kilometers where you really have to push. And if you still have gas in the tank, that's going to make a difference indeed.
But I was interviewing Sofia last week, and she said, because whenever she's not used to gels still, whenever she reaches for gels, she has a huge rush of carbohydrates afterwards because she doesn't use them enough. So I'd expect to see her even pick up the pace after this gel. Most people take on carbohydrates to stop their performance getting worse. But if you don't take enough of them, you're in a slight deficit. So you get that sugar rush. And she'll be getting that right now at exactly the right time she needs to be pushing to the finish. She'll be having some caffeine in there as well. So this race is absolutely on. We don't know the exact splits, but given how similar the terrain looked when we saw Judith and when we saw Elise.
And here's Carrie.
When we saw Sofia, we expect them to be still within touching distance. And with 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, this race for the win is absolutely on in the men's and the women's.
Hopefully we'll get visuals here because Karina Carsolio, she knows, and she knows exactly where she needs to go. So she's looking for a path. Because she knows she can cut, so she'll see ahead that the trail carries on, but then it's going to be on the left that everything happens, and a difference can potentially be made. But indeed, Sofia Laukli did look impressive, and she is still pulling away further from Karina. So potentially, which means pulling away from Karina, means getting closer to Judith.
And this is the point we talked about earlier. This is 16K, so this starts at just over 2,250 meters, and it drops within less than half a kilometer to 1,850 meters. So we're looking at a 400-meter drop. I was right the first time. Well done, David. It is a 400-meter drop in less than 500 meters. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. And this is where you'd expect to see Carrie back on Sofia's shoulder, which could spur her to attack even more. But we expect to be seeing the men coming in quite soon to our finish.
I was going to say, David, look at the clock.
Yeah.
We're past the 2-hour mark.
Oh, no. Oh, no. It's
So this will not happen again this year, despite the early fight. Maybe they've just run each other to the ground, but one sure thing is now Elusine will be smelling the barn, and it's going to be a massive fight between Stian Ungermund and Fred Tranchant at this moment, followed by a camera mountain biker, and that we should expect indeed to be close to the town any second.
If you ask me, we come to the Golden Trail not to see people race good times on time trials. We come to the Golden Trail to see battle royales. And this was a battle royale from the start. The fact they haven't hit the time is no surprise. When you saw how fast El Hussein was taking it out in the first kilometer and Stian was battling back. I can't believe they're running as fast as they are at this stage of the race, given how much they put into that early stage of the race. But we're hoping to be able to see El Hussein, Stian and Fred, our top three. I mean, look at the pace of this cyclist. This to me suggests that they're trying to catch up with the runner because they are so far ahead.
They must have been with Fred and Stian. We probably didn't have the images, and then our mountain biker Greg is going to pull away and try to reel in Elusine for the finish. Now we're on the fixed camera of the finish line, waiting for Elusine to finish at any point. And right up there, we're waiting for fourth place woman Malinosa to come through. We quite didn't catch her yet, but she is running in fourth. And then she's followed quite far, like about 5 minutes back, by Alice Gadji and Elise Poncet. Who's coming back? Elise Poncet.
Yeah, she's coming back, but it's the ferocity of the front of the race has been too great, and the fact that you've got Judith, who is a good downhill descender, and the fact you've also got Carrie, both of them. But this is El Hussein now.
And he's been told you've got a minute. That must be such a relief to hear. Between 30 seconds, he heard that about 5 minutes back, you get a minute. He'd be like, okay, maybe this is going to happen.
And this has been the longest wait for a podium of any top athlete I can think of. He deserves this more than anyone. And it's been a step change. He might be thanking Remy for this. Remy told him, he showed him in the finals last year, you cannot run on the shoulder for the whole race if you want to win. You need to be your own man. And even from the start, El Hussein took some risks. We saw several times he overtook and then was questioning whether he should still go. But you can hear Greg shouting, go, 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 because he wants this
one
more
is
than
for you.
Yeah, he wants this as much as anyone. And we're hoping now, with El Hussein winning here, this is going to make a massive change in the scores of the series. And going to America, El Hussein knew he can't get a visa for America. Sierra Zanel doesn't really help him that much because it's not a race that suited him. This is the one he needs to go all out. He's gone all out, and it is paying dividends.
It is indeed, and the question now is going to be what shift mentally that's going to create to now acknowledge that he can take a title, that he can be stamped with the mark of the champions, and then potentially now stop sitting on shoulders and race his own races.
What kind of beast is this going to create? The flying camel is coming through to his very first victory in the Golden Trail Series. Okay, we're meant to be biased, but I love this guy. He's had so many mistakes through the years. He's learned the hard way on he needs to change his nutrition. He needs to change his strategy. He needs to change his training. This is someone who has time and time again done it again, but he's starting to enjoy it. You can hear the noise of the crowd.
What a man, what a legend, what a win for El Hussein El Azawi, taking his very first win on the Golden Trail World Series.
I'm standing up. I'm applauding. Yes, El Hussein. Yes, you've done it, El Hussein. We didn't know if it was possible. And he's taken the risk and taken his very first win of the Sorry to the listeners at home. I love this guy. I'm sorry if you've turned your TV screens now. He is going to enjoy this more than anyone.
Yeah, a well-deserved win indeed. And he's gotten that win off of a daring move right from the top of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like, he was with Stian, and he was like, okay, I'm making a move. And very quickly opened up a gap and showed that in the rolling section, once again, we talked about it. And we've seen it on the images. I mean, the speed out second. It's Roberto De Lorenzi who has
overtaken both of them.
He's passed Fred Tranchant and Stian to take second place. I had told you, Roberto De Lorenzi was in shape.
Scout.
He was here meaning business. And look at this right behind Fred Tranchant, could not resist.
What an incredible finish to our race. Fred in third. None of those two were on my list of people who we thought would podium today. And they both had to run hard down the hill. Stian clearly is tight, but look at the gap they've put over fourth and fifth.
What a happy day for all these runners. All of them will be absolutely stoked with that performance.
What a race this has been from start to finish. And it's been a mix of technical running, of pushing hard on the uphill, and at the end, to have to, after all of that, not let up for even a second of the timing and have to push all the way through to the finish. You could see they were catching El Hussein there. But this is Judith already. Wow. She's looking fantastic, our women's leader at the moment. But there's not much behind her, second, third, and fourth place. So again, like our men's, this podium is not settled yet. But she is still looking sublime. And look, he's looking back because he's expecting runners to be coming
We're going to be waiting indeed for our second female runner to come through to get a gauge of the gap between these two. It wasn't much, and it seemed like Sophia Lauchley, after regaining second place, was actually pushing a little bit to potentially close the gap between her and Judith Video. We're going to have a short commercial break, I believe, and then we're going to be back shortly for, obviously, the finish of the rest of the runners and, obviously, the females leader.
Here's Erhardine.
Here we go. We are together with the winner of the 25th edition of the Dolomyths run. Once third place, once second place. Finally, 2023 is the year of your victory. Tell us something about this race and your feelings.
So much. Je peux parler français? Je peux parler français? You can speak. Je suis vraiment très contente parce que je pense que c'est la dernière chance pour moi pour qualification avec les top 10.
Last chances
Je suis très contente aujourd'hui pour mon victoire à Dolomyths.
Finishing in the top 10
E
wasn't going to
quindi
be
ci dice
meaningful,
che era
but
felice,
he
insomma,
wanted to actually
l'aspettava
take
molto perché
the
era
win
l'unica
today,
occasione,
and so
per
he's
l'ultima occasione
absolutely
per
delighted that he
qualificarsi, è
finally managed
veramente
to do it
felice di questa
after two
vittoria. So you
podium
had
finishes.
yesterday some very good feelings, some very good vibes. You had the feeling that it could be your day today.
Merci vraiment beaucoup à tout le monde qui m'ont encouragé, qui m'ont fait la confiance que je peux gagner aujourd'hui. Encore une fois, je suis très contente et j'ai vraiment fait un bon entraînement.
I'm very good with the training that I had leading up to the race.
Compliments,
And
merci.
so I
Quindi
thank
grazie
you all.
veramente con questo parterre di atleti era veramente difficile, ma la gioia, la contentezza, veramente la felicità
And so we
negli occhi
just
di
have
Elusine
missed,
Lasawi.
obviously,
Grazie.
Stian finishing in 4th position. And actually, Bart is in the finishing shoot as well.
So he must have caught up a lot of places. We did see our 5th place runner was really tiring there. I think it was Daniel. We're trying to get an update on the women's splits as well, because we expect to be seeing Judith or Sophia or Carrie or Marlon coming through in the next 5 to 8 minutes.
All right, David, we have missed a big finish here. So, Elusine Lazawi winning. Roberto De Lorenzi, who surprised everyone, came second. Frédéric Tranchant just behind him. Stian Angermut was the last one of that chasing pack, with Patis Daniel following from Italy. And then Manuel Merias had made it right behind them, followed by Mattia Gianola, Bart Prediowski, and Mattia Bertoncini followed very closely. About
what was the
15
difference
seconds.
in the top 10 times? From 10th to 1st. I mean, that is an incredibly tight field.
So, Elusine Lazawi won in 2:04:39, and then 10th place, Théo Bourgeois, also coming from France and representing Brooks, 2:09:30.
Wow, I mean, to get...
So within less than 5 minutes was the top 10 after 22 kilometers and 1,750 meters of elevation gain in Moss.
We're with our female leader at the moment, Judith Weider from Switzerland. She's won here twice before and was potential favourite on this. She's still looking very smooth, but we do know Sophia Lockley hasn't given up yet. She was looking incredibly fast behind her, and she'd said in the press conference that she knew she had this runnable section left at the end of the race, and even if she was starting to fall behind, was going to start attacking as soon as she passed the 5K to go mark. But this is our top 5.
Gentlemen, your top 5, Elusine Lazawi, Roberto De Lorenzi, Fred Tranchant, and then followed by Stian was 4th and Daniel Patis was 5th.
A fantastic run by Daniel Patis, 5th from Italy. Good to have an Italian on the podium without Davide here as well. And it's great when you can get runners come to the Golden Trail who haven't necessarily raced on the circuit before and can make a name for themselves. He'll be invited to the next race, all expenses paid, but we're now here with Judith.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, on the flatter section, her stride meant business. She is moving fast, and she is moving with very clear, very proper stride. She's not showing any sign of fatigue, so she will be tracking forward that way all the way to the finish line. So for Sophia Lockley to actually close the gap that was between these two, it's going to be extremely hard. Sophia Lockley has shown incredible strength and speed at Mont Blanc Marathon. Is that going to be enough? That's going to be hard to tell.
And that's the thing. Sophia has already done Zagama. She's already done Mont Blanc. And both. So did she do Zagama? Actually, maybe not. Yes. No, she didn't. She didn't. She's done Mont Blanc.
Her debut was at Mont Blanc.
And Mont Blanc was the longest distance she'd ever run. Not raced. She'd ever run. And whenever you take yourself up a notch of distance, it takes a long time to recover. So she will have that fatigue in her legs. But similarly, Judith has run the World Championship. She came second over the 40K. So they both will be tired, but they both looked as if they got their nutrition strategy right. And the fact they're still running fluidly, I do think Sophia will be smashing this terrain faster at this stage. I think she will be closing. Now, Judith, she won't have got an update on what the time gap is since she met Gabriella, her husband, at the top. Greg will potentially have known what the split was. We're still trying to find out ourselves in the studio.
Second mountain biker here, there was one allocated to the men's leader and now one with the females leader. So potentially they will stop to give us an indication, a split between Judith and Sophia Laukley. But if Judith wins today, regardless of the time, this is going to be such a victory on her accident, on her stroke, and the fact that she will prove that she can be on top, second at World Champs, and winning here at the Dolomyths run. I mean, that is going to be a statement, and I would be absolutely stoked for her.
Absolutely, and we're going to get an interview with some of our other finishers now to see how the race unfolded for them. We'll be back to see our women's champions shortly.
So here we go. Here we are with the second place of the Swiss competitor, Roberto De Lorenzi. Better than last year because he got 5th place last year. And we have seen from the first images that you really kicked off along the uphill, and it was really your day. So are you happy about your result?
Yeah, I'm super happy with my result. Second place, I didn't expect it. At the start I said maybe top 10 if I am in a good day, but second place really something amazing. It was really a super race. I felt really amazing from the beginning. Stian and Lazawi went fast from the beginning. I just kept a little gap, but I was with Fred and we helped ourselves until the top, and then Daniel Pattis come with us, and then we always overtook ourselves. Was really amazing, was really tough, and then we went to Stian, and the last 20 minutes was really tough, and at the last 5 minutes I felt a little bit of energy, so I said I try, if I don't go to the finish line I just explode, but I tried to push and I finished, so I'm super happy with my second place, really amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. So nothing you could do against a fantastic Elusina Lazawi today. He was unbeatable.
No, it was too strong uphill. Maybe if I pushed a little bit more in the uphill, I could went in the summit with Lazawi and Stian. But then I would explode in downhill, I'm sure, because I'm not so super good downhiller. So for me it was better to keep a little bit of gap. And then in the downhill, no, it was 1 minute in front. It was always pushing. The guys that was in the downhill said us, you have 30 seconds, 40 seconds. He was always gaining something. So yeah, it was not.
Next year.
Yeah, next year.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
A very humble Roberto De Lorenzi, knowing the shape he was in after placing 9th at World Champs uphill. He was only hoping for a top 10 here. I'm like, come on, you can do better. And indeed,
he lives on the other side of these mountains. He's Italian Swiss. But here's Judith. She can see she's coming into the town fairly soon. She can taste victory. We still haven't had an update on what the splits are for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So she's not looked back though. So you'd suspect that she knows she's got a comfortable lead if she's not looking back. A bit of an uphill just as they come into the final turn for the town. But we'll start
I think there's a bit of time. There's a bit of time before they get to the start. I think she might be coming into the aid station right now.
Wow.
So we still have a bit of time.
So the times are significantly different to previous races we've seen here.
I think so, yep.
Yeah, so potentially a lot more time left for the women to try and track her back. And as soon as we get split on that, we will let you know. In terms of here are our top 10. Bart making up into 8th. Manu through back to 6th. Significantly, Manu didn't catch up any time on the downhill. When we looked last time, he was 2:29 down on Elusine, he was only 2:36 down on the finish. So it just shows you that smoother bit of running really allowed Elusine to pick up.
Yeah. No, Elusine was on another planet this year, and it's good for him. Like I think we can both agree that this is a win that he's deserved and worked pretty hard for. And as you said, he came into the scene with no experience, no guidance when he came to race pacing, nutrition, everything. So he made, all the possible mistakes, he's made them. But what's exciting is that he's learned from them and he's built upon them. And now coming and taking the win in front of such a stacked field and after such a battle, making a bold move after Peace Boy on the descent is definitely exciting to see him finally make those moves and make those decisions.
And his background, he was discovered by he's a Berber who lives in the Moroccan desert, and he was discovered running to get water for his camel, and they saw how fluidly he ran, and they suggested that he started to actually try doing races. He did some races, he did incredibly well, and moved in with a friend in Switzerland, where he then learned how to race in the mountains. But he's not been backed by big sponsors along the way. He's had to make these journeys all by himself. He can't go to America because he can't get the visa. And so he was aware today that this was his last opportunity to really score big points. And he saw in the final last year, you need to have good points leading up to the final race, because people like Remy are just too strong, and you know that someone like Remy is going to be picking up points in Pikes Peak, out in California as well. And so he had to give everything today, and it was just a gear change for him.
And he's played his card right, because he's performed on the races that were suiting his strength, and I mean, as we've seen today, he's absolutely delivered. And I think while Remy is going to go to the US and also battle it out extremely hard at CRC now, that's going to be such an exciting live coverage to follow. The final in Italy, there's no long climb.
Nah.
It's just kicks and kicks and downhill and flat. And therefore, who is that going to suit better between Remy and Elusine?
It's so hard to tell, because it's not what we've seen before, where Remy will take off on the big hills and then he has to fear that down. And Remy this year as well, in fact last year, you could see he's been working on his flat pace. His downhill, he's very technically gifted. And this is Judith now, who's leading our women's field. She's picked up the pace again since we last seen her.
Yeah, and she knows the course now. She knows it's the final stretch. You turn off the brain, regardless of how painful the legs may be, and that's it. You stride out. The technical part is over. You're going from this gravel to the road. So now it's just going to be opening up more and more and more. And she has that speed that she's still carried on from orienteering, and that's going to be tough. She's still not in the last couple of 100 meters, but we'll give you a heads up so you can be prepared and not knock over your beer on the side of your couch while you're watching this live coverage of the 25th edition of the Dolomyths Skyrun. What an edition it has been in the men's, and I just can't wait to see what unfolded in the women's race as well.
And with Judith, it's such a story of redemption. You know, the last time we saw her in the Golden Trail was at Sierra Zanau. She came in 9th, and if you've seen Chasing Dreams, the series, and here's Anders, our downhill specialist from Norway. He would have loved today. But we saw her on the side of the track at the finish line of Sierra Zanau, grabbing her hip. She'd had some real issues with following the stroke, and her bones just not being fully recovered from going through having a child, and the combination of those two. So to see her go away,
she is blind.
To come back as strong over the speed, and the World Champs was really a turning point in terms of her results. I think it gave her belief that she was still up there in the world's best.
I will challenge that. I think he gave the world the belief, because I'm pretty sure deep down she knew that she could do it. And that's what I like about Judith. She's smart. She has experience. She doesn't get overwhelmed. And when she targets a race, she goes all in. And she did that for Worlds and delivered. She was passed in the just before the last descent, and she claimed second. But this one, she also trained really hard. And I was talking to her partner, Gabrielle, and he was like, "Yeah, she's ready." There's always the unknown, but she knows that she can pull off a really good performance, and she is delivering today. So that's what I appreciate about her. She does her thing, she targets the races, and then she comes utterly prepared, and most of the time she delivers. And today, I don't think Sofia, as much as we saw her on the images, moving also very quick, it might be just too short. And for her to pick her out.
And we believe Sophia is in second by the nature that we saw her on the footage there.
100%. Like she had passed Karina, and then the flatter we'll get, and we know the last 5-6 kilometers are flatter ground, and this is where truly Sofia can shine just as much as Judith.
And we knew it was game time for Judith this weekend, because she left in and her kids with the grandparents so that she could just focus on the race. She's come to races in the past with the family, and it's very draining.
Here's the smile.
There's the smile. She clearly knows. Is this Greg on the bike, we believe?
No, this is the second mountain biker who's dedicated to the females race. Great job, by the way, to all the camera runners and mountain bikers out there who are offering us those images. But she knows, and imagine how good that must feel to come back and prove the world that you are still on top, you are back.
It's been 2 years since she was last here at the Dolomyths run with the Golden Trail. She won 2 years ago. She won 4 years ago. There's something about alternate years that just play. She's now here, her third win, which takes her up to number 2 in the overall wins at this race. One behind 4 winner. But this would almost be the sweetest of them all. To have such a long time away from victories, 2 years since she's had a proper victory at a high caliber race to the come,
and there she is.
Will she? When she won it last time, she gave us a lovely ballet jump at the finish. Will she do the same? No, she's really just enjoying this. Incredible to see. Third time winner. She's won the series before. She's won here twice before.
And in a splendid time as well. Not her best time, but still, for such a comeback. Look at the joy.
There's the jump.
That's coming out of Judith Bieder. Man, she is so deserving. We know how hard she had to work. And then look at this. Thanking the crowd. The crowd of Canada here. They know her. She knows them. And she certainly give back and want to appreciate 100% the love she's been given and the support she's had all throughout the course.
And again, we thought this was going to be a race of two halves, where whoever was leading at the top wasn't necessarily going to be leading at the bottom. But we've seen, look, the surprise on Judith's face of like, oh, you won! Wow! Like the joy of that. Neither of them necessarily expected to see each other here, but
and there we go.
But Sophia, it speaks to her competitive spirit that she thought she may be leading at the top. She is, of this field, the person we suspected was the best climber. She was going to struggle with altitude coming from Norway, but she didn't let the fact that Judith overtook her early, or that she was even caught by carrying it close to the top, that didn't get to her. She just sat back and waited for her time to attack back, and you can see she's running smooth. This will really be great for her confidence. She wasn't sure whether she made the right decision to come.
She is equally deserving for very different reasons. She was feeling sick the week leading into it. She had every right to pull the plug and be like, no, I'm not going to be racing at 100%. Maybe I'll pass on this one, because originally she hadn't planned that one on the calendar. But she said, I'm here. I'm not 100%, but I'm going to give it a crack. And hands down, this is a champion attitude. And the fact that she takes second and she's going to score a whole lot of points for the overall is just as admirable. And hats off to for her first participation as well. So we didn't have the images of the downhill, but whether she was also managing to cut all the switchbacks, which is definitely not something you can do in the US, so she would not be familiar with it.
But there she is. She's not been able to train since Mont Blanc. She's not been able to run.
She's been on skis and roller skis.
Roller skis, because She had an issue with her foot following Mont Blanc. That was the longest she'd ever run, and said this second is going to feel like a victory to her. An incredible performance by Sophia Lockley. She wasn't sure 2 days ago whether she was even going to run. So to come out, to fall behind and not give up and run all the way through to the line. This is amazing for her in this performance, but also for the series. This will take her to the top of the leaderboard. She is now leading the Golden Trail World Series. She's heading back out, we hope, to Pikes Peak as well. She wants to be doing Sierras and out.
And what a performance here from Karina Carsolio.
Yes, I mean, it's been 2 years since she's been at this type of form, but returning to a race that you know you've done well. She knew from the start that she was in the form of 2021, and she's got the all-round game. She came back in 2021 from 4th place. She was in 2nd at the top, and she's still running so well. This will make such a difference to her season because this will allow her she'll get an invite to Golden Trail. She'll get all expenses paid to the next races if she wants to come. And given that she's had 2 years of injuries, she's suffered a loss of confidence. She's rebuilt that confidence with a psychologist.
Man,
and yeah,
she's moving.
She
right
is
now,
running
it's a really good performance. And then again, she's never run that course because the year she ran it, she finished 3rd. They didn't go up to the top of Fitzroy, so that's the longest version she's run. So she doesn't have a reference. She's still looking back just to make sure she doesn't get past, you know, the sign of people who know how to race. It's like, okay, you can't make that rookie mistake, but she's gonna be stoked. Like, and equally in the men's, like those guys, Elusian obviously massive win, but like we are not as surprised maybe because we knew he had it in him, but the fact that he delivers. And then behind Roberto De Lorenzi, Fred Tranchon, I don't believe anyone would have predicted that. And same in the women's, Judith obviously one of the favorites, Sophia Lockley, Karina Carsolio coming back. Wow, wow, hats off Karina, well done. And I can't wait to see the next step.
And there was an element of 2 years ago where we thought, partly was this a fluke, but also Judith was only just coming back from injury at that stage. It wasn't quite as strong a field as other Golden Trail races. And yet, when you're racing people like Sophia Lockley and Judith, who came 2nd in the World Champs, you know, Carrie is making a name for herself here. She's reminding everyone that wasn't a fluke. And you can see Sophia there with the gloves we talked about earlier. She is making a statement that she is back, and we expect her to be performing at this level in future races. So this is absolutely great to see.
All right, we're going to get an interview, I believe, starting with Judith and hopefully with Sophia and potentially with Karina. We'll see how many interviews get carried on, but
when you come, 3rd time you win. When you come, you win, that's for sure. You were not able to beat your own record, but let's see next year. So you really like this course, don't you?
I almost have to say it, but actually, I mean, when I come here, I'm always feeling like really nervous because it's so steep downhill. I was like close to falling all the time. I felt really like unsure. This time the course was way longer, so I'm really happy with my time, with my race, and yeah, I had tough concurrence today, lots of good girls, so I had to fight all the way to the finish this time.
Yeah, you were fantastic. We saw that above all in the downhill, there were no enemies for you. You really pushed very hard.
Yeah, I knew that they are strong. I mean, Gary is really strong. Also, Sophia is just amazing. I mean, they're just, so good. So, and I knew that also the other athletes will come behind. So if I do a mistake, I will definitely lose my win. So I really had to push, and I'm happy I could do that all the way.
So congratulations, first of all. 3rd time, 3rd win. We wait for you to try the poker.
Yeah, we will see. No, I really love to be here. Italy is just beautiful, so maybe, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you a lot.
Che meraviglia, Judith Wider col suo sorriso splendido che ci ha detto, insomma, e aveva un po' di paura, quando viene qui è sempre molto nervosa, in realtà aveva paura di cadere ad ogni metro, così non è stato. Nella discesa ha spinto tantissimo, ha detto assolutamente sì perché avevo delle atlete di tutto rispetto, c'è sempre un parterre particolare di grandi atlete, quindi ho dovuto spingere al massimo, è andata benissimo e gli ho detto se verrà l'anno prossimo per tentare il poker dopo 3 vittorie, chissà, lei ama molto l'Italia, ama molto questa gara e quindi speriamo. Thank you so much.
Yeah, many an athlete has agreed to return, but we spoke about Marlon Ossa at the beginning.
From Spain, a very young runner.
She's only 20 years old, and she was saying to people she wanted to come in. She was looking for a top 10 from today. I don't know if she genuinely meant that, but I think everyone else knew top 5 was certainly on the cards.
Was in the cards, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you look at the performances of the people around her, this is an amazing performance.
Oh, yeah. And she feels it, fist up in the air. It's like, yes!
I mean, this is the start. Like, watch this name. She is someone to watch in the future. Sara Alonso, for the last 2 years, has been saying, watch out for Marlin. She is super talented, and she's only going to get better. And we've seen that today.
So, yes, David, we're going to go into Sophia Lokley for an interview as well. Let's hear it.
She looks knackered.
Yes. Okay, here we are with the second position of the athlete from the USA, Sophia Lokley. Usually I used to see you with a pair of cross-country ski on your foot, but you started this career together with one of the cross-country United States team in the sky running. What a success! And you got the second place, fantastic today, but Judith Wieder really seemed unbeatable today.
Wait, sorry, I did not hear you.
Judith Wieder, that was the winner, really seemed unreachable today.
She was untouchable. We were together for maybe 5 minutes, and then she passed me, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna catch up or keep up with her. So I've tried to push too hard at races, and it ruins the race for me. So when she passed, I was like, I'm gonna let her go. I'm gonna do my own thing. But I was honestly very uncertain. I haven't been feeling too good coming into this race, and so I was gonna just do my best. And I was honestly very, very surprised with how much better I felt today than the past week. And so it was more of one step in front of the other, and it was nice to have her in sight. She was the gap kept moving, but it was an interesting race for me because it was the first time that I enjoyed the downhill more than the uphill. The uphill was a big suffer fest for me, but I will say the steepness in my skiing background was the highlight. All of the ski walking, it made it a bit more enjoyable. But yeah, Judith, today was her day, and it was super cool to see that. It's so fun to have a competition like that. It pushes you, and it makes you want to come back stronger.
Very good. So, fantastic second place. You're satisfied with it. You know that we are very close to the Olympic venue of cross country here in Val di Fiemme. So, I heard in an interview very recent that you promised to go on with your cross country career until the 2026.
Yeah, that is the plan. Yeah.
So, we'll see you very soon. Maybe here in Canada next year, but in 2026 in Val di Fiemme.
Yes, for sure.
Congratulations.
The Tour de Ski this winter in Val di Fiemme. I'll be there.
Very good, congratulations.
Thank you.
E le parole di Sophia Lokley, che è veramente stupita anche lei stessa di questo risultato, non si aspettava. Judith Wieder è stata veramente irraggiungibile alla fine, insomma dopo i primi 5 minuti ha capito che non riusciva, non sarebbe riuscita a raggiungerla, ha fatto la sua gara un passo dopo l'altro, le sue capacità come fondista l'hanno sicuramente aiutata, lei che appunto fa parte del team dello sci di fondo degli Stati Uniti, ci ha promesso, come ha fatto in una recente intervista, che sarà qui a pochi chilometri di distanza in Val di Fiemme, sia per il Tour de Ski del 2024 e poi per le Olimpiadi del 2026. Grande atleta dello sci di fondo e grande performance per lei. And here we are with the third position, third again, because 2 years ago we had the same first position with Judith Wieder, the same third position with Karina Carsolio from Mexico. So again, Mexico on the third stage of the podium. We saw your emotion at the end of the competition, your tears, because you were maybe overwhelmed by the emotion of being here again on the podium, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I was really not expecting it, but I felt really strong from the beginning. I was very excited. I love this race and I love this sport where everybody's friends with everyone, and it just feels more like a celebration than a competition.
E quindi grazie Carina che ci ha detto, insomma, felicissima, e qui ha detto una cosa bellissima: più che una gara sembra una festa veramente, perché tutti ti fanno il tifo e quindi sono molto eccitata. Did you expect today that you could reach again the podium?
Scarlett?
Well, I felt strong. I knew I was stronger than 2 years ago, but I knew that my competition was also stronger. The level just keeps growing, the field keeps getting deeper, so I just knew I could push, and I knew I had to stay with them at the top, and I could keep up on the downhill, because that's what I like. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
E quindi grazie, ha detto che insomma sapeva che doveva spingere fin dall'inizio, perché le avversarie erano veramente super fortissime, quindi complimenti a Karina Carsolio, ancora terza.
Yeah, I mean, she's completely right in the level have just improved and improved and improved. And so it sounds like this third place for Carrie is even sweeter than that first.
And as you were
podium.
mentioning, like her coming back from injury, there's always this moment of doubt. Can I be back to this level? And she did. And she did. And so this is our 5th place.
We're just checking who this is on
in
the
the women's race, who's now seconds away from the finish line.
What a great performance. She clearly picked up quite a few places coming into, because we hadn't seen her running before. We're just checking the number there, number 170. Race number 170.
No way. Hang on. But if this is who I believe,
it's 10,170 was the race number. Great performance. Not someone we've seen challenging for podiums in the past, or even the top 5 in the past at the Golden Trail. So, and this is what's great about this season. If you can turn up to one of these races, and of the 1,100 people racing today...
Alice Gaggi.
Ah, and where's she from?
Italy.
Another local runner. Fantastic to see. And they'll all receive invites to come to Sierra Zanao, our next race, where they'll have expenses paid for and automatic entry into the races. So,
there she is.
There's Elise.
Elise Poncet.
It was just too much on short distance to catch that up. And if you look at her now, you know, she's looking fluid, but she's not pushing to the line. I think she probably knew early on that it was too much to catch up.
And look how she's finishing. She's not too spent. She's got a smile on. So I think she'll be happy with that performance.
And she's had a very disruptive year where she's moved house, she kind of moved sponsors, and so she's had a lot to going on and came into it. She came into this knowing that she's not had a great period of training, and so there were question marks of her own, for herself about how she performed today. And to a certain extent, it's probably just nice to get that period behind you and be back racing and like, now I know where I am, what's the new plan, what are my new targets,
exactly,
how's this going to affect my training.
And then, like, as you said, this whole period is behind her. She now has stable bases. And, I mean, good on her for showing up and be like, okay, I'm not too sure what's going to happen. I'm going to just dive in and see what's next. But, you know, she is stoked.
But we were saying before, we can't. With Sophia, whether the altitude and that slight illness was still in her, because it sounds as if she just couldn't push on the up in the way she was expecting. The fact she said it was horrible. And
Anastina Aquila as well, she was fresh over the 7th place at Mont Blanc Marathon. She will be stoked about that place. Like, Anastina is back as well.
Yeah, and I spoke to Anastina earlier, and she was saying this just doesn't suit her. She prefers things like Mont Blanc where she's running fast. She doesn't. We've spoken about Fred, where he lives in Finland with only 40 meters of climbing. She's not quite as experienced over the technical terrain, so she's learning. So to pull out a top 10 here again just shows that you've got to be in it to win it. And this is a great performance for her. She's really improving. She came second in the national series 2 years ago, and she's now clearly making a name for herself on the World Series. She's got a young family at home, and she's now got a bit more time to train. She's full-time student alongside that in physical education, and so her performances are just improving.
Yeah, what a race for her. I'm stoked for her as well, for Anastina to be back.
There's our podium. I'd say compared to the men's, this was more predictable, this top 3, I'd say.
I mean, Roberto De Lorenzi and Fred Tranchant?
No, exactly. I'd say this was more predictable.
My bad, I misunderstood. Yes, 100%, agreed.
The positions, and it's going to be great to see whether there's going to be more battles between Judith and Sophia, because they're going to get to learn to know each other. And for Judith, she's been away for 2 years. And
actually, sorry, I'm cutting you. Do you know if she's coming to Sierra?
Sophia or Judith? We're yet to hear from Judith, but given there's no Mauds, given that Sophia is still not on the cards, after these performances, you've got to think that Judith is going to want to be at her home race.
Home race, but somebody else is after the course record there, and it will be Nienke Brinkman.
And this is the trouble. You come in, Judith is used to winning races. She's back on returning form. But when you've got a 2:22 marathon runner who's run there before, this is her big focus of the season.
And you add on top of that the anger that she couldn't make it to Mont Blanc Marathon because she just went slightly over the edge in training. She was so excited. She just wanted to come back and battle it out on the trails because she's really mixing a road and trail. So she's like, I'm coming to Mont Blanc Marathon for a big race. And then she couldn't, so she's going to be extra hungry.
But the battles, we've only got a few seconds before we finish. Killian, Patrick, Remy, head-to-head. This is the biggest battle of Sierra's now history, I believe.
To me, that's going to be the race of the year. Do not miss out.
Oh, and that first hill is going to be insane. Nienke is coming back. She is going to have her eyes on that course record. And you also never know who else is going to be coming to be battling. We expect Sky Runners to be back there. We expect Run Together to be bringing some superb talent.
Yep.
Joyce almost certainly will be back. So will Killian be able to win? He's never lost in prime condition. He had COVID last year.
Correct.
He wants it more than ever before. This is going to be the race of the season for sure.
Exactly. So we're almost already transitioning. But like here we're in 25th edition of Dolomyths Skyrun, third stage of the Golden Trail World Series. Fourth is going to be Sierre-Zinal. August, you better be here. We will be for sure.
Yeah, 12th of August. And if you thought we were excited about this race, that one is going to be an attack from the beginning. And records could tumble, but people could blow up. And that means records could be a long way away. Yeah. And in fourth place, in fact, that's going to be 12th of August. We'll see you there.
All right.
Thanks for listening,
guys. Thanks, David. It's been great. Thank you for watching out there, and see you for Sierre-Zinal, 12th of August.
Happy trails.
Some people choose to sleep in and enjoy the slow morning. Some people choose to move as little as possible, maybe meet friends for Sunday brunch, or watch a movie on the couch. And for workout, some people choose a fitness club. That's okay, but we choose to be different. The new Suunto Vertical. Suunto, adventure starts here.